Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of absolutely epic and exciting racing action in the Just Two Idiots Championship Series Season 13, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. We continue the story of our MX-5 season, and here today it's time for round number 5 of 6, our penultimate round, and where exactly we're made our way to. Well, with the continuing theme of an American triple header, we're made our way to America's Lazarus of motorsport. It is none other than Virginia International Raceway, also known as VIR. A circuit that's had an extensive history to the best part of 60 plus years, but is most notable for the fact that with its revival in the year of 2000, it has gone on to become one of the premier circuits in the country, rivaling the likes of Daytona, Laguna Seca, and of course, none other than Watkins Glen. At its core is a picturesque countryside circuit, which spans the best part, in the case of the North Circuit drives we'll be taking on today, 2.25 miles, with fast flying corners, grass that lies around every bit of tarmac, and sloping verges away from the circuit. It is one where you need to make sure you stay on the black stuff, as to go wide here, you'll find yourself very quickly heading towards the forest, albeit more so to a tyre barrier, but the key point being mistakes are going to be highly punishing, and that's exactly why year on year when drivers take to this infamous circuit for what will be club level racing or even some national series on the North Course, they're making sure to keep on the black stuff first and foremost, and also prioritising track position. It's not to say overtaking is going to be difficult around here, but you can put yourself in pole position. You've got a good chance of being able to defend, unless your roles are going to feel very tricky and brave under braking. And to be fair, with the racing we've seen so far this season, I wouldn't put it past other drivers out there to be very bold and sharp on the brakes. But who exactly is going to be putting the brakes up today in order to take victory and make sure they head into the season finale at Daytona in a week's time on a high? Well, that's what we're here to find out as we bring you all the racing action as if it were live. Indeed, you're tuning in today on the only place you can catch all the racing action as if it were live, and that's on youtube.com, and search for Porsche Productions or PWP. The racing you see here occurred on what was Wednesday the 15th of July 2026, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live this Thursday the 16th of July. That means here in the content booth, we do not know what happens, whether it be in the practice session that's coming to a close in the background, the upcoming qualifying session, or most critically, our two races on the schedule. And that's why we say it's going to be as close as possible to the live viewing experience for you guys and girls tuning in at home. In the content booth, you have myself. My name is Paul Walsh, Uninitiated, and I shall be your host and commentator throughout this season. And in terms of our schedule for today, times in Eastern Daylight Time, EDT, or UTC minus 4, Universal Coordinated Time minus 4, that is, whereas we can see in approximately around about 7 minutes time, we're making our way into our penultimate qualifying session of the season. 20 minutes in duration, due to get underway at 10 past 10, after which we make our way to the grid for the first of our two races. The first one being at approximately 25 to 11 for 20 minutes of racing action, our sprint race, then followed up by our feature race, 40 minutes in duration, double the distance in terms of time, and most likely double the overtaking action that we can expect, all set to get underway at approximately 11 o'clock this evening. But as we get ready to go racing the course at VIR, there's only one thing we should do to welcome you back into this broadcast, is to bring you up to speed with the story from round number 4, and exactly how the standings stand coming into our penultimate round. So without further ado, let's get up to speed with proceedings. And as we can see, as our story of the season continues, last time out we returned from our mid-season break on the 8th of July, and we opened up our American triple header by a visit to the Chicago Street Circuit. Now, the circuit conceived on iRacing 2021 and born to life in 2023 for NASCAR, well, it definitely proved to be a very valuable circuit when it came to the racing on the streets of Chicago last time out. And when it's 2023 Cup course, we got to see some of the tightest racing action we've seen so far this season. But of course, in qualifying, it was very tight at the very front, as it was very tight in the pack. We had two stars who shone the brightest out of our 13 drivers who made the way onto the streets of the Illinois circuit, and what we got to see, it was a battle for pole position in the end between Dickinson and Knotavin, whereby then Dickinson took pole position by just over 2 tenths ahead of Knotavin, and the pair were half a second clear of the rest of the field. Simply Steve took 3rd place, and only half a second separated him from the rest of the field down to 9th place, and it suddenly showed just how close the fighting was likely to be when we did go racing. Sadly for Paperbag, it was a challenging qualifying performance, whereby in the end he got a bank lap on the board and prioritised his race pace above all else. And also we got to see a debut for Mark Darnell making his way onto the grid, and also we got to see some difficulties for Yo Mega, who couldn't go racing after a difficulty with his car was identified in practice. And we suspect it was the heat, because it was a boiling hot day on the streets of Chicago, whereby track temperatures in race number 1 hit 126 degrees Fahrenheit, and in race number 2 we saw them drop slightly to 113 to 115, but very uncomfortable temperatures at that. And given it's the summer point of the season, understand understandably, we definitely did see our drivers there have to sweat it out. And in race number 1, well, if qualifying was about the split in the field, race number 1 split the field even further because a major incident triggered by contact between the Speed Squad teammates of Simply Steve and Epmy Dust at turn 3 on the open lap caused the field to split up into 3 constituent parts. Your leading duo, Dickinson and Knotavin, they did not get involved in the incident. They ran away and the battle would be between them for the win. Meanwhile, in the run of 3rd through to 5th, we saw the trio of VIR, niCKaLaToR and Bob Nova squeeze through all the madness that unfolded, and then ensuing carnage played out, and we saw all those who survived the carnage, despite many having to come to the pit lane for repairs, including Cat Daddy and Gabay. They were the ones who had battled for 6th downwards. But in the end, in terms of your top 3, well, we got to see Knotavin take the victory off of Dickinson, making a move quite late on in the race, despite missing out on pole position, but he did prove over the race distance he had the better tyre management, and with his hot track temperatures, he was able to exploit his better tyre management to make a move and make it stick versus Dickinson, and in the end, where it was a gap of 2.1 seconds for the 5th win of the season for Knotavin. Meanwhile, Dickinson, he took that 2nd place, his first podium of the season, even though his tyres were definitely feeling uncomfortable at the end of the race, and for VIR, it was 3rd place after starting 7th, but of course survived in the lap 1 instant, and after that, taking his time to pass by Nova, and also niCKaLaToR on laps 7 and 8, and then was under constant pressure from niCKaLaToR to the very end, although a barrier strike for niCKaLaToR spoiled niCKaLaToR's chances for retaking 3rd place back on the final lap. So race number 1 had a lot of drama at the start, and then we saw some absolutely classic racing action. Race number 2 on the streets of Chicago was more of a classic we come to love and know. A much calmer start compared to race number 1, and it resulted in plenty of batting throughout the top 10. And though there was some difficulty between Mark Darnell and Cat Daddy on lap number 2, which saw Darnell sent to the back of the field, but he would recover to 6th place in the end with a brilliant drive as mistakes became increasingly common for all the drivers as they adjusted to the 40-minute duration of the second race and found that track temperatures were biting away at tyre life. Now, the battle for lead seemed to be set between niCKaLaToR, Knotavin and VIR and Dickinson, albeit after Knotavin had dispatched Paper Bag, were a contentious instant into turn 1 on lap number 4, and that's what caused the quartet to come together. But on lap number 9, niCKaLaToR made a major error which forced him to tow to the pit lane, and Knotavins' technical retirement on lap 19 meant it was a straight two-way fight with VIR outpacing Dickinson due to better tyre management in the final third of the race. Meanwhile, Simply Steve and Epmy Dust both put aside their differences from the incident in race number 1 to work together to take 3rd and 4th place as they gradually outpaced Bob Nova over the race distance. So that podium in the end from race number 2 was VIR ahead of Dickinson and Simply Steve, and to be fair, both VIR and Dickinson earned those spots on the podium for a absolutely dogged fight, but only one could win it in the end, and it was VIR, and Dickinson had to settle for 2nd place again, but back-to-back podiums throughout, back-to-back 2nd place finishes as well. And for Simply Steve, after the drama of race number 1, we get the feeling he was very grateful for a calmer race number 2, albeit he was the quicker driver out of himself and his teammate of Epmy Dust, and Epmy Dust acted as a rear guard in the end to make sure that Bob Nova couldn't come back at him, and well, we got to see Simply Steve take his first podium of the season since his only other podium back in round number 1 sprint at Alton Park. But therefore, we come into this round with plenty of change on the podium, plenty of new faces on the podium, and 2 to go. But here we are today at the VIR Circuit's North Course, and in a week's time on the 22nd of July, we will be bringing the curtain down with our sole crown jewel round for the season, and that'll be in the US state of Florida at the Daytona International Speedway. But what do you need to know about a host circuit for today? Well, here's a circuit map provided to us by iRacing.com's absolutely brilliant simulator, and the track maps contained within it. A big thank you to iRacing. This circuit located near the unincorporated community of Alton in the Halifax County of the US state of Virginia. It is one of those circuits whereby, on paper at least, it looks relatively complex, given the fact you do have a grand total of 17 corners as squeezed into its 2.25 mile length. But fret not, because what we do see here is we do have a good portion of the full course to start off the lap, and the deviation from the full course begins at turn number 7 uphill bend, which is a downhill flow all the way through turns 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 into 12A and 13, followed by the roller coaster sequence of Virginia's own equivalent of the Laguna Seca corkscrew in California, and that'll be down through the right into left to turns 14A into 15, after which our drivers will then make the way through the sweeping section of turns 16 and 17, the downhill plunge into Hog Pen, and if they don't make a complete pig's ear of it, they'll be flat out as they come out of Hog Pen and onto the start for the straight to do it all over again. A very technical circuit around here, and that middle to late sector very tight as well, so overtaking is expected to be into turn 1 at Horseshoe Bend, all the way through to the snake at turn 6 and 6A via NASCAR and left hook, and also potentially overtaking opportunities will arise as our drivers battle the way towards Hog Pen and to the finish line or to go on to a future lap. We'll get some onboards in qualifying to bring the circuit circuit to life for you, no doubt about it, because there's plenty of elevation change, and as a two-dimensional circuit map doesn't quite bring it to life, not quite riding on board. But meanwhile, in terms of rules and regulations, we always show you these, of course, because we have to have rules and regulations. We cannot go racing otherwise. Car setup-wise, this is an open setup championship dedicated to the global Mazda MX-5 Cup car. So it does mean drivers bring a setup of their choosing to each and every race day session, but they all must use the same car. Qualifying-wise, an open qualifying format shall be used, and drivers have 6 flying laps available, plus the out lap that they initially leave the pit lane with. But if they do go back to the pit lane and then make the way back out, they don't get any extra out laps. They essentially will start to eat into their available qualifying laps, 6 in total. Now, as we do have a Grand Prix session today, we can see the theme of the Grand Prix race format rules, and the races shall commence via a double-fold rolling start, as it is a tradition of MX-5 Cup racing, such as in the global MX-5 Cup that supports the IMSA Sports Car Championship, and we follow that template here at the Just 2 Idiots Championship Series. The feature race grid shall be set based on the results of the sprint race, and the top 8 finishing positions shall be inverted. In layman's terms, whoever wins the sprint starts in 8th place of the feature, and we continue that inversion all the way to the 8th place finisher, who starts on pole for the purposes of the feature race, and then those who finish 9th and downwards, that's exactly where they'll be starting for the second race of the day. There are no mandatory pit stop requirements, and we are not expecting any pit stops on our drives for fuel or tyres, but we may see some drivers come into the pit lane should they pick up damage, of which they have 2 fast repairs available, or if they've been cheeky enough to receive a drive-through penalty for 16 or more instant points, then they'll be going into the pit lane to serve that, and we'll see further drive-through penalties assigned at a subsequent 8 instant points afterwards, and all race stewarding shall be conducted post-round. But as we make our way back to circuit side, ladies and gentlemen, well, let's bring up speed with the standings coming into our penultimate round, and we start off with the Drivers' Championship standings, of course, and as we can see, leading still, your defending champion from the LMP2 Season 12 of the J2ICS, it is Knotavin for iRacing. It's been a tough season for many a driver, but not quite for Knotavin until last time out, whereby really it was his first mixed fortune round, whereby in qualifying he was able to demonstrate the fact his poor qualifying at Okayama was just a blip, taking that second place and then going on to take the win in race number 1, but it all went wrong with the technical issues that conspired against him in race number 2 and forced him to essentially retire from the race. But he was classified as 12th, so he did pick up some points, but Knotavins' lead has been held at 169 points, and he knows that he cannot afford more blips in his schedule, because otherwise the night racing driver will see that lead of 33 points raised, and niCKaLaToR will be there with him for Bong Life Motorsport. And right now, niCKaLaToR, well, it's definitely been a similar fashion in the fact it was mixed fortunes for him on the streets of Chicago, with a 4th and a 10th place, and the Bong Life Motorsport driver missing out on an opportunity to close the distance. Simply Steve sits in third for Speed Squad as he continues to chase down the top 2 there, having the better run of the results compared to some of his rivals inside that top 5. And meanwhile, what team's Bob Nova? Well, it was a story for him whereby it was 2 5th place finishes back to back, and definitely highly consistent, albeit ruined the fact he could not quite keep it together in terms of pace for the high track temperatures, and that's what cost him the podium, particularly in race number 2. Cat Lady completes your top 5 there for playing race cars, another round whereby it was a bit of an uphill battle for him, though he did enjoy plenty of batting on the streets of Chicago. Then we do have Dickinson, the one to watch out for in the number 1, many are saying, and I would agree with them. Now, of course, we should point out that SimCity Racing have formally announced themselves in the Teams Championship, more on that shortly when we do come to the Teams Championship standings, but Dickinson last time out, 2 second places back to back. Now, it is an outside chance here, given the fact we do have 1 drop score applied this season, and you are seeing that 1 drop score being applied into the standings already. However, many will be wondering whether Dickinson, if he can continue a run of fortune where he could steal away a place inside the top 3, or whether he could potentially steal away the crown. It's a big outside chance, but it is within mathematical reach, at least at this time, but he will need to get his skates on if he wants to be able to do so. Emmy Dust sits in 7th place there for Speed Squad, ahead of Corndog, and then we do have Beaver and Pancakes completing the top 10, with Pancakes the other SimCity racing driver on 78 points there, 2 behind Beaver, but 8 ahead of the best rest driver of Geng for Abicular. And well, Geng not quite on the grid today, unfortunately, so we won't see him put any more points to his name, but hopefully we'll see him back on the grid in the upcoming finale. Biker Pilot sits in 12th place, and Biker Pilot being your official sponsor for this round. And we'll tell you a little bit more about the title for this round very shortly, with AJ there sat in 13th place, the privateer, ahead of Garlic Dog and Urko. Now keep in mind that Biker Pilot, AJ and Garlic Dog are all on 69 points, and then you've got a further 14 to Urko for Bong Life, who complete your top 15. Your Omega is in 16th, ahead of Paper Bag, and it's Captain CK, Mark Darnell and Gabay who complete your top 20, and outside your top 20 there and is none other than Timothy Tigish, and on 0 points thus far, Sneezy Jr. But meanwhile, in the team's championship standings, here we can see your leaders are Speed Squad, and the advantage they do have, well, it's the best part there of 31 points, and well, exhibiting a little bit of control over the team's championship at the moment, but perhaps the bigger fault here, and the more clinical or critical fault in this team's championship, is look at the gap between the top 5. We have a grand total of only there, if my mental maths is correct, 53 points separated. In fact, no, it's 43 points there when I do my maths right. 43 points separating the top 5 teams. It is extremely tight right now. Indeed, any which way this swings, any one of the quintet of teams could potentially take the lead going into the season finale. It is still wide open, and Speed Squad right now wants to try and make sure it's not wide open coming away from VIR, as Bong Life Motorsport sit in second place on 191. Bong Life right now definitely licking their wounds from last time out, much like Speed Squad, and to be fair, Speed Squad have taken the lead despite the lap 1 sprint race incident, and well, the team are getting their heads together now in order to try and open up the lead, with Bong Life needing to bounce back. SimCity Racing, now they formally announced themselves in the team's championship, they have taken the third place spot, which they are allowed to do, to be fair, because both drivers have been on the grid. They have not changed team allegiances all season, so therefore they are allowed to announce themselves as a late team, albeit I suspect the frustration of playing race cars and night racing, now they know they've got a new dance partner out there. Meanwhile, outside the top 5, it's Team What Team, only a single point ahead of 3.8 Racing as they duel it out for 6th place, and there's a further, well, it's 18 points back to Bad Math Simsports and Ubiqular, and well, Bad Math Simsports team, they're not rubbing off on me there, we're getting the maths right, but they were earlier on, but right now it's a battle for 8th, it's a battle for 6th, and we've got a 5-way fight for the championship crown. We could not be in a better place for our team's championship health coming into this point of the season, ladies and gents, and I can promise you that. But as we do get set, well, of course, round number 5 is known formally as the Lepers, Beggars and Prostitutes Grand Prix. Now, our sponsor for it, a big thank you to Biker Pilot, who unfortunately is not here today. He has not provided me with any context as to why he's given this name for this round, so I get the feeling perhaps the last time he visited VIR or the US state of Virginia, he happened to find lepers, beggars and prostitutes, and perhaps that's why he's not on the grid here today, because as far as I'm aware, if they were being given out in throws here at the circuit, well, I have not seen any lepers, beggars or prostitutes at VIR, but to be fair, I think all we're going to be seeing today is plenty of classic racing action, and well, we're very much eager to get into it, ladies and gentlemen, so without further ado, let's sink our teeth into the qualifying session. Here we go. It's time for 20 minutes, 6 final laps per driver. Who's going to come out on top and pole? It's time to find out here. It's time to get proceedings underway in Virginia. So as the clock begins to tick away here in this qualifying session, well, what's going to be the big fault? How important is qualifying going to be? Well, as we mentioned earlier on, qualifying is going to be quite critical here. This is a circuit where overtaking is quite difficult compared to other circuits that we have had on the calendar. It's not impossible, but you do need to be very daring if you want to make an overtake happen, and that is going to be the hard part around here. You can see there's plenty of road width, at least at the starter lap, and that road width does narrow as they make the way onto what is the loop back for the northern loop. And well, of course, this VIR circuit, for those of you not aware, and if you are looking for a little bit of pub trivia that you can impress your friends with about this circuit, this is one of a very limited number in the world whereby it can have multiple layouts run simultaneously, and it actually does have the ability to run 2 pairs of layouts simultaneously. Now, you sat there thinking, well, surely that must be very complex given the fact that most circuits only have 1 layout that can be run at a given time, and this one has 2 pairs of layouts, so 2 pairs of 2 essentially that can be run simultaneously. We're on the north course, but alternatively the south course, which is just a little bit south of this section of the circuit, that can also be run at the same time as the north course, and on top of that as well, the full course that you typically see for the likes of the IMSA Sports Car Championship among the other international series, that can be run with the Patriot course in the middle of it being run simultaneously. Now, if you combine those 2 circuits together, you do end up with the Grand Course, and you typically have 2 variants of the Grand Course, the West and the East, which marry together sections of the North and South courses as well. And well, there's some very colourful names for a particular corner on those Grand Courses, which we're not allowed to repeat on this broadcast because it would constitute swearing. But let's just say it's a name given to a female dog, and there you go, we can get away without swearing there. But as we do see Dickinson make his way on through, well, he'll swear by the thought process today, which is he wants to try and get as far up the order he can, and he's got that motivation now. 2 podiums back-to-back last time out on Chicago. Surely he'll be able to get things done today. Well, we will see as he goes on to his first flying lap. Now, we will see some lap times attributed to our drivers on their out laps, and that is a glitch on our timing tower. And well, interesting enough, in regards to rolling starts here at VIR, and also just to exit from the pit lane, And the timing line is at the end of the pit lane around here. And when we do have a rolling start, if it is a full rolling start, which I'll have to wait and see if it is, well, the rolling start actually begins from the pit lane, not from the grid. It's quite unique, this circuit, and the fact that rolling starts are commenced out of the pit lane. And that does happen to some circuits around the globe, but it's not too common. But VIR still practices it. Indeed, a very popular circuit. And since its arrival in 2000, it did move to a club-based model, whereby if you do want to go driving or watching events at VIR, if you want to go on track days, whether you want to race here, also if you just want to be a spectator, you really do want to get a membership to the circuit, and that has enabled the circuit to revive its bank account and essentially make it one of the premier circuits in the world, not just in the US of A. But as our drivers carry on, here's Garlic Dog making his way down the start-finish straight, and as he does so, looking quite impressive as he does, and we will get on board with one or two of our drivers a little bit shortly. Now, of course, we do need to say big commiserations to Paper Bag, because it was a bit of a rough end to his time at Chicago after that incident with Knotavin. He was leading, he had started on pole position for the purposes of the feature race, his first ever pole position in a top 8 inverted race, from what we can tell or what we recall going through the annals of the Just 2 Idiots Championship Series, and we're in a little bit of contact between him and Knotavin. To be fair, both drivers did talk about it afterwards. There was no report about the incident. They both did settle the differences rather politely, and which is unfortunate there, because Paperbag was on course potentially for his first top 5 of the season, but it just was not going to be that way. As he makes his way on down the round right now, we look forward to seeing what he can do here today as he glides his way into Hogpen a little bit sideways. But as he does so, well, let's talk a little bit about Beaver's car out there, of course. Now, you'll notice there, and we did talk about it a little bit at Chicago, the gunship-themed livery on the car. Now, I have done some checking through the discography, and indeed, he has confirmed, has Beaver, that he's a massive Gunship fan, and I'll put my hand up and say I am too. For those who are not aware, Gunship are a British band who arose to the world in 2014, and they're very much focused on synthwave music, but particularly trying to latch on to 1980s nostalgia, which is a big thing at the moment. Indeed, nostalgia of the 1970s through to the 1990s really become more and more commonplace, particularly in the world of motorsport, with a lot of individuals, myself included, really having a love now for 1980s and 1990s and early noughties cars, and not just Japanese domestic models or JDM models, but indeed cars around the globe. But Beaver there running a livery dedicated to Gunship's self-titled album from 2015, and the one that saw them really rise to infamy with the infamous music video for the song Fly For Your Life. And well, today we'll have to wait and see where Beaver is flying for his life, or whether alternatively it's going to be dark all day for him, in the fact that this could be one of those rounds whereby it really is on a precipice. But either way, as he'll be dancing his car through what will be the latter half a lap shortly, well, he'll be doing his equivalent of Gunship's own Doom Dance, of course the big collaboration song on their third album, Unicorn. And well, I'm going to try not to put too many song name puns in here. I've got a few locked up behind in my brain, and well, those may come out a little bit later on. But we'll have to wait and see what Beaver can do, and indeed we look forward to seeing him demonstrate his ability to absolutely dance his MX-5 around VIR. But as he does so, well, we look to Gabay as well. And good to see the 22 driver out there at the moment, currently on to what would be none other than his third flying lap, I do believe. And this is quite a long lap, to be fair. The lap time around here, but just being shy of 1 minute 40. So therefore, they are going to use up most of the time in this session, as Pancakes and Dickinson are back on outlaps of their own. Now, we should point out that Simply Steve is the only driver here who cannot qualify today. He does have a qualifying ban, and that is because he was attributed to being the driver who triggered the lap 1 turn 3 incident in the sprint race at Chicago, and therefore he has picked up a sizable penalty. He did have a place deducted from him in the sprint race. He went from 11th to 12th, but also he has seen a qualifying ban attributed his way due to the damage that was accrued across multiple drivers and the fact it was essentially a race change of so many. But as niCKaLaToR crossed the line, he goes fourth. Cat Daddy, meanwhile, jumps up to the front of the field, a 36.639 there. A very impressive lap from him for Blame Race Cars driver. But meanwhile, as Pancakes of SimCity Racing makes his way down the start for the straight, we jump on board with him to take you around for a flying lap of the North Course of VIR. So he makes way in towards turn of 1, looking to his left-hand side for his brake mark, and it will be there, the 1 board, approximately 120 meters from corner apex down to second gear, and now let's go roll deep intentionally, so that way as he comes through 2, he gets ready now for the trick of the double left of turns 3 and 4. But going in towards that left-hander, now into NASCAR bend, and as he does so, come through turn number 3 at this point, with this corner, very tricky corner for NASCAR drivers, that's how it's got its name, more on that shortly. Now into left hook as he goes through turn number 4, and in towards the right-hander at turn number 5, well, that's pretty much a right cross at that point, but it doesn't have that name, not quite sure why. But as he exits out of turn 5 now into the snake, the left into right into left serpentine sequence of turns 6 and 6A. Well, now he'll just ride the throttle all the way into uphill. The right hand here that deviates away from the full course, and it's known as uphill because it's a completely uphill corner. It's a blind summit. But at this point, he's still on a bit of an uphill rise right now as he makes way through turns 8 into 9 and then into 10. But as he makes way through the curves here, just keeping it nice and smooth through 11. Well, very shortly, he'll begin to plunge a bit downhill as he comes over the crest of 12 and makes his way in towards Roller Coaster. Completely blind corner. You cannot see the corner you're braking for as you brake about 130 meters from it. And as he comes down through Roller Coaster, now in towards turns 16 and 17 and into the hog pen he goes. But as he comes down the hill, braking there, completely blind once again as he brakes downhill. And now through turn 17A here, Pancake's looking very smooth with his craft, no doubt about it. And a great effort there from him as he makes way towards the timing line. It's been a decent lap so far. What's it going to be as he crosses that line? We're to wait and see. He's currently 9th fastest, albeit 3 seconds off the next time. I think he feels as though there's a lot more time out there. A lovely lap from Pancakes. That puts him full for 37.130. And, well, he's still got one more lap to go, if not 2. Right now, a lot of drivers here are really finding some good time. But it's Dickinson who's currently out there looking for pole position. He's on a 36.606, only 300s quicker than Cat Daddy. And, well, this is a popular circuit, well, drivers, to be fair. Everyone's been very much looking forward to this. VIR is one of those Marmite circuits. Not many drivers in faster disciplines of machine enjoy VIR, and the reason for it is because it is so difficult to overtake it in the likes of GT4, GT3 and higher division machinery. But you take club cars out here, such as the MX-5s, whereby they're all designed essentially to really require the driver to make the most out of that 181 brake horsepower delivered by that 4-cylinder 2-litre Sky Active G engine, and suddenly you have got an absolute firecracker of a recipe for racing here. And the North Circuit, of course, also does offer a whole variety of technical array of corners, plus also plenty of straightway to enable the battles to commence. And that's why when we do go racing, it's be very interesting to see how the field cooperates, or whether everyone tries to go elbow to elbow straight away, because cooperation could be key, but also getting your elbows out right at the start could be just as important on the way to victory. But as Bob Nova makes his way on through, well, meanwhile, we do look to Knotavin, who's decided only now, midway through the qualifying session, to make his way out there. He is on his outlap, championship leader in the Drivers' Championship and the sole effort driver in the Teams' Championship for iRacing, currently 5th in that championship, but right on the heels are 4th and 3rd. So Knotavin right now will be hoping that he can achieve a very strong score. If he does so, in theory, he could wrap things up today, given the way the drop scores have gone. How we've not done the maths on that, not because we've been lazy, but it would require essentially quite an anomalous set of results to enable Knotavin to take the crown. As he sets his initial benchmark at 42.627, and we jump aboard with him as he now makes his way on around. But this will be a much quicker lap at this point, and we'll have to see what he can do. Dickinson and Pancakes, they've completed their qualifying sessions, and they are going to sit 1st and 2nd provisionally at the moment, with Dickinson a whole 2 tenths quicker than Pancakes. But Knotavin right now, as he makes way into NASCAR Bend, well, here we go to see whether he can raise the stakes. NASCAR Bend, named after in an infamous NASCAR Legends race, I do believe in the 1990s or early noughties. We saw several big Hall of Famers in NASCAR get it very wrong there and end up in the barriers, and that's why Turn 3 got the name of NASCAR Bend, because it was seen to be the corner that was at the detriment of NASCAR drivers. So a little bit of a dark history of that one. No worries, no casualties out there, but understandably, a lot of races were terminated at that point. But as Knotavin makes his way into uphill, going through that right, and that's such an egregious corner. In fact, Knotavin there actually apexed it way too early. But of course, that's the thing. When you've got such an aggressive corner uphill, you think you need to come in a lot earlier than you really do. You have to abuse the camber of the road there and have the faith, but also you have the confidence to brake late. But as he now makes his way through turn of 12, in towards 13 and 14, and into the roller coaster. This will be a bit more familiar territory to many of you out there as he makes way down. But if you've watched a lot of GT3 races around this circuit, and coming in towards the hog pen, well, here taking plenty of curb, but rolling his way through, really abusing the curb of 17 before 17A. Lovely line there for Knotavin, and as he makes way towards the time line, what's it going to be for his first proper lap? He's had a banker lap, but now he's got those tyres up to temperature. The fuel was gradually being burned out the car, and he's got another 4 laps to go, and the answer will be a 36.849. That is 6 tenths off the overall pole time of Dickinson right now. Knotavin definitely is looking quicker and quicker. He's going to be one of the last drivers out there then, because the only other driver out there at the moment is Gabay, but Gabay is on a cool-down lap at this point. So Gabay's going no higher than 8th here today. He is the best part of a second ahead of Garlic Dog, and Paperbag is currently the lowest placed driver who has set a time. But as always, we have typically seen that Paperbag in the lime green racing machine has been one of those drivers who's been faster in the racing, has gradually built pace, while perhaps not as rapid drivers as many of the stars you see out there. But to be fair, he's a shining star in his own right, and the fact that he normally starts today learning the circuit, and come the end of the race day, he's not winning the pace there to contest the top 10. Albeit we only have 11 drivers here, we have quite a limited quantity of drivers, but as we always like to say, it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality of the drivers. We saw that in the LMP2 Championship last season, Season 12, and we're seeing it here in the MX-5 Cup Championship in Season 13. It really has proven to be the fact. Doesn't matter how many drivers are out there for the J2ICS, so long as you've got a good haul of drivers out there, you've got plenty of exciting racing action to come. As we get these exterior pictures, and Knotavin weaving his way through the intersection on the north course and coming down through roller coaster this time. Well, he has gone purple in Sector 1, so that's the first 3 corners. Meanwhile, in the middle sector, he's gone personal best. As he comes on through the last couple of corners now, going through Hogpen and to the line. Well, Knotavin not been purple in any other sectors, but he is improving. Could he find his way towards the front row already? And remember, he's still got another 3 laps to go after this one with 7 minutes left on the clock. It is definitely going to be a bit of the Knotavin show right now, but we're not complaining. As he heads to the line, he improves by 4.5 tenths. It's a 36.379. And Knotavin right now, in fact, that was not a personal best final sector. That was actually a weaker final sector by a tenth compared to his previous best. So Knotavin right now, he may be able to steal his pole position away. He's second on the grid now. Pancakes will be looking at some thinking, well, where on earth has that come from? Indeed, everybody will. But Knotavin right now could spring a surprise on everybody here as he rolls his way through the corners of the Lepers, Beggars and Prostitutes Grand Prix. And as he comes on through at turn 4 into 5 right now, I'll tell you one thing, he won't be a beggar out there. I think Dickinson will be the beggar, begging that Knotavin does not find a way to improve. And well, Dickinson will be praying to the racing gods at this point for that. Otherwise, we could be seeing Knotavin right up there. And, well, right now, definitely pushing hard as he makes way into that braking zone. In terms of the weather we have here today, well, there you can see we do have a relatively high track temperature once again, much like Chicago. Currently 123 to 124 degrees Fahrenheit. If those of you in Celsius, I do believe that's around 45 to 46 degrees Celsius. That is hot. It is not cool, I can tell you that. And once you go above what is around about 116 degrees Fahrenheit, 40 degrees centigrade, you suddenly start to see the tyres really struggle for grip. They very quickly go through their warm-up phase into an overheated phase, and you've got to protect the tyres. We have an ambient of 84 degrees Fahrenheit out there, and as he makes his way through the final corner, well, it's hot off the press here for Knotavin, but what's it going to be this time? Only an improvement in the middle sector, personal best, another improvement. But the final sector, he could make up the delta. He has a 10th on the line in the final sector. Does not improve there. So he has 2 more tries at this. And we jump aboard from the gyro camera here, gives you a better idea of how much road he's using on board, and using all the width of the road there to go in towards the opening corner. Aptly named none other than Horseshoe. Again, the fact it looks like a horseshoe. And we'll be going to a horseshoe hairpin next time out of Daytona, of course, and now into NASCAR Bend. Onto the brakes there, and essentially staying wide at 2 to open up line for turn number 3. You've got to essentially treat 2 as not a corner. Now coming into a left hook here as he makes his way over the curve. Really abusing the curbs here as Knotavin. And I wonder whether that is a little bit of a double-edged sword the way he's using the curves, because yes, they get the car raised up and they help rotate the car, but also, of course, every time you hit a curve that high, you are unsettling the car. You're essentially causing the front end to wash out, and the rear suddenly gets dropped onto, and you compress the outside suspension, particularly that rear left tyre, for a lot of those corners. But coming over uphill there, and well, you can definitely see a lot more of the corner from the gyro camera by comparison. Well, here he goes then, weaving his way through turns 8, 9, 10. Getting ready for 11 shortly, but right now absolutely pixel precise here from Knotavin. At any more width than that, he'd be going to the grass. He really has mastered this circuit, although his Sector 1 and Sector 2 have not been improvements so far. What about his Sector 3? He comes to the timing line at Sector 3 now, and the answer is going to be no improvement there. And made his way through the final corner. Has he hit his limit here? Which he may have, to be fair, given the fact those tyres will be starting to feel just a little bit too warm as he makes his way on down towards that timing line. And what's the answer going to be here? Does he find a bit more time? Does he get closer to Dickinson? The answer is going to be no, not quite. 36.615, with his previous best is a 36.4, essentially, or 3.8 to be a little bit more accurate. So right now, and Tyron's going to need to find 1.5 tenths out there, but he seems to be struggling. He seems to be struggling by the best part of 2.5 tenths at the moment as he makes his way up between his corners one last time. As he goes all the way out there to the very edge of the circuit going into NASCAR Bend, he's decided, right, gloves come off on this lap. I'm going to throw everything at this. And to be fair, trying to get his best possible laps out there on bankers. And now decide, right, let's turn the wick up to 110%, where he's going to be overdriving the car now. He knows he can probably get one very strong lap out there. All drives typically have that as he now makes his way underneath our gantry board. And as he comes in towards turn number 7 uphill, does he get the line right this time? This has been the corner. It's caught him out a little bit. And the answer is yes, absolutely nails that as he makes his way through and using every millimetre of the tarmac. And that's perhaps the best thing that a driving instructor will teach you when you are starting to learn as a racing driver, whether it's on the simulator or in real life. It's what coaches will tell you in sim racing space. Use every millimetre of the circuit and you will be amazed because, of course, in iRacing, you are locked to an onboard camera. You are not allowed to use any other camera other than the cockpit camera. You'll be amazed as a driver how much of the circuit you do not use at first until you really do learn a circuit. And right now, Knotavin showing you just what 100% track usage looks like as he makes his way towards the timing line. He's going straight over to the right-hand side here. Has not been proved in any of the sectors. So this will be a magical final sector to get him any further up the order. And the answer will be no, he does not improve. And that is qualified complete, ladies and gentlemen. Well, RB and Knotavin does not improve there. And Will Dickinson takes pole position. And what a huge pole position there. His second pole position back-to-back. And what is Dickinson today going to be looking at making it 2 wins in a row rather than 2 second place in a row? Well, your guess is as good as mine. But he will be joined there once again by the rival who joined him on the front row at Chicago. It will be Knotavin. Pancakes taking that 3rd place. And Pancakes there having a season-best qualifying performance, but only 57 thousandths behind Knotavin, and in turn, 2 tenths quicker than Cat Daddy, who in his own right there having one of his season-best performances, starting 4th. Beaver starting 5th there as he sits in the pit lane right now with a minute and a half to go. He cannot go, well, he can go back out there, but he won't be allowed to set any more laps, so he's just taking it easy. I wonder what he's got on the proverbial iPod there, if people still use iPods, to be fair. Nowadays, I think it's iPhones or iTouches or something along those lines. I'll be honest with you, ladies and gents, but I fall apart. I've still got an MP3 player that I use to listen to music, dated all the way back to, I believe, 2012 is the MP3 player. I've had it that long. That shows you how old tech I can be sometimes. But either way, enough about me. Beaver right now taking it easy. Simply Steve gets into the car behind him. And, well, no qualifying time set, of course. Not allowed to. And I think just making some quick setup adjustments to the car. But Beaver starting 5th in the company of Bob Nova. And, well, almost 6 tenths separating Beaver from pole position. And Bob Nova almost a second off a pole. He won't be too pleased about that. niCKaLaToR as well, starting 7th ahead of Kabay. And then Garlic Dog and Paperbag completing your qualifiers with Simply Steve. We'll expect the 23 try to look to carve his way through the field as Knotavin brings himself off the field and into the pit lane. Just taking it nice and easy as he makes his way on down. And, well, this will probably be the only time he comes into pits unless he picks up damage, or dare he do so, a drive-through penalty. But as he makes his way into the pit lane, he won't be too happy about missing out to what is Dickinson for pole position, albeit be happy to be on the front row. But I get the feeling Knotavin one of those drivers whereby he'll congratulate Dickinson, but he'll find a little bit more of a motivation there to go hunting after pole. But, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, that is our qualifying session complete. And as the clock goes to 0, it is time to make away onto the grid for the first of 2 races here at VIR. It's time for the 20-minute sprint of round number 5. And as our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll all line up for the first of their 2 races in our penultimate round of the season. This being the Lepers, Beggars and Prostitutes Grand Prix, as sponsored by Biker Pilot, brought to you from the Virginia International Raceway in round 5 of season 13 of the Just 2 Idiots Championship Series on iRacing. Dickinson taking pole position, back-to-back pole positions for the SimCity racing driver by the best part of 1.2 tenths, heading Knotavin for night racing. It's the same front row as on the streets of Chicago, and Pancakes and Cat Daddy, 2 new players to the very front of the field. They'll be starting in 3rd and 4th respectively. The SimCity racing driver will look to try and make an early break if he can and try to hang on to the back of the top 2, and that 2 tenths gap to Cat Daddy there, is that a sign of a difference in pace? We'll have to wait and see. But the plain race cars driver will have the company of Beaver behind him, a further 2 tenths almost adrift, the Privateer, and then we do have team's Bob Nova starting in 6th place, and he'll be quite happy with his performance and be looking to move forward from there. Then we do have starting 7th, niCKaLaToR, Born Life Motorsport ahead of Kabay, the Privateer, and then we do have Garlic Dog for playing race cars and Paperbag, the Privateer, completing your top 10. And outside the top 10, starting on 11th place with his qualifying ban now served, Simply Steve for Speed Squad. But you can bet that he will be looking to channel as much speed as possible and come charging through the field. And that will be a very exciting prospect in its own right. But, ladies and gentlemen, we get set for our formation lap. It will be a full formation lap. from the pit lane, and as we sit on board looking down over the front of Simply Steve's Speed Squad car, well, right now the Japanese livery on there, and well, will it be blossoming like the Sakura trees from the spring times? Alternatively, will he find himself having difficulty? Well, Cat Daddy there has towed to the pit lane, you see on the right, so he will not be taking part in this formation start. The field does get themselves away, and as they make the way out of the pit lane, well, Dickinson will lead the field for SimCity Racing, and well, understandably right now has got a whole lap to try and find a bit of tyre temperature. And if he can do so, we'll be very happy with any temperature he can get into the tyres. Although the flip side of the coin, understandably, would be none other than the fact that he'd ideally like to make an early break if he can. It's not going to be easy. The draft is a very powerful part of racing at any circuit in the Mazda MX-5 Cup car. We saw it at Chicago. We will see it here again. You've got a very long run up towards turn number 1, X'd out a hog pen corner. But the good thing for Dickinson is he can decide when he wants to go, and he can choose to go any time between when the safety car has crossed the pit safety line and the start finish line, which is 2/3 of the way along the curve straight. So therefore he needs to pick the right time to go. Wait until the last moment isn't always the best thing to do, because a lot of drivers will expect that once you go a third way down. But if you can pick normally somewhere between halfway to 3/4 of the way down that straight, you can try to outfox your rivals. But to be fair, Knotavin, he's had plenty of race starts with him pole sitter. He's had to dictate the pace. We saw it in the LMP2 Championship. We took every win that season, and we have seen it so far this season with what's been sort of his front row starts from pole position. So therefore he'll be looking to try and guess when Dickinson is going to go green. But Beaver a bit further back as we do look to the onboard from him. Well, right now, the Nick Beaver machine, the privateer driver here, starting a bit further back than he would like to. Well, how far can he quickly get through? Gabay joins him there, and with Cat Daddy starting for the pit lane, a lot of drivers have been promoted to position, so therefore they'll be grateful for that, although we hope to see Cat Daddy out there. We don't want to see him stuck in the pit lane for too long, but it does mean he'll be started a bit further back, and he'll have to claw his way onto the field. His teammate Garlic Dog, meanwhile, well, he'll be starting now on the 5th row of the grid, and looking forward to attack Paper Bag from the outset. But as they weave their way into the last couple of quarters, ladies and gentlemen, the safety car pulls away, and it'll be over to Dickinson to take us away for our first 20 minutes of racing action here at VIR. And as he builds up speed, Dickinson goes green nice and early. We are away, ladies and gentlemen, as they roar the way down towards turn number 1. And as they do, well, he's going to hold on to that lead as quickly as he can, because we can see there Pancakes looking to the inside, trying to help his teammate out. Meanwhile, Knotavin looking around the outside here. Difference in approach of a teammate versus a rival. And Pancakes right now becomes a threat for Knotavin as the rest of the field follows behind. niCKaLaToR attacking as well with Bob Nova. But you can see there Pancakes being squeezed out a little bit by Knotavin and loses out. But he does enough there to protect Dickinson's position at the front of the field. But now Dickinson's got to do the hard work himself from this point onwards. As you can see, Pancakes there becomes a bit of a cork in the bottle. Beaver and Bob Nova, with Bob Nova looking up the inside. Can't quite make that move work there into left hook. And right now, behind niCKaLaToR there, landing a little bit of a right punch on the side of Gabay's car, albeit no contact between the two of them, but getting right on the inside there, but loses the power going through Snake. And as a result, Gabay takes the place back. Gabay going very defensive early on for 6th place. That's caused a bit of a split already between Bob Nova and Gabay, and suddenly 5th through the first could be pulling away. As I look around the outside there from what is Garlic Dog and Simply Steve, but Simply Steve in the end does hold position. He's up into 9th. Now Garlic Dog continues to wind his way through. Cat Daddy, by the way, is listed as a lap down, but he is on the lead lap. It will be correcting our time tower shortly. And right now he's in 11th, but he is the best part there, around about 10 seconds behind the field, and he'll look to try and catch up as quickly as he can. As Paper Bag holding Simply Steve at bay right now. Paper Bag, as we said earlier on, he normally gets a lot more comfortable once he's got cars in front of him to follow, but he does seem to be starting to glue himself to the back of niCKaLaToR at a distance. But as they come through Hog Pen, meanwhile completing the first lap of many in this race. Will Dickinson leads, but look at the Knotavin staying nice and close there as they make their way onwards. Simply Steve in the rear of the pitch there, trying to make a move on Paper Bag, and well, Mel's trying to pass Garlic Dog, but after one lap, it's Dickinson ahead of Knotavin right now. But here comes Knotavin looking to the inside, in towards the horseshoe. And well, Knotavin goes for it, but is Dickinson perhaps playing the game here, which is don't overwork the tyres? Well, he's overworked himself onto the braking zone. He's got to understeer to the grass there, keeps 2 wheels just about the black stuff there, drifts his way back onto the road, and Dickinson there could have been far, far worse, but Knotavin takes the lead this race, and Beaver behind. Well, right now, Beaver going to the attack here with Dickinson struggling to get his rhythm back in alignment, and right now is Beaver going to try and pounce in nice and early, well, before Dickinson tries to build up a proverbial dam versus Beaver as he makes his way through turns 5 and 6, because otherwise they could be fighting for second, and Knotavin may be able to just simply disappear off into the distance. Third back, Simply Steve fighting side by side with Pancakes here. And Garlic Dog behind, but Pancakes right now slipping down the order. And, well, Pancakes, for all the impressive qualifying points he's had right now in this race, this is not impressive at all right now. He'll be feeling, and he'll be wondering where is it going wrong. As we can see there, Paperback still on the back of Garlic Dog. And Cat Daddy trying to close up his group little by little. He is going to do so, we believe. But he's got still a bit more time in this race to fight. But as Pancakes sees Gabay pull away into the distance, well, Gabay right now trying to stay on the back of niCKaLaToR. But these two are 1.3 seconds away from Bob Nova. And Bob Nova right now might be making a break here. He's just got to keep nailing these corners, and he may be able to move himself into a bit of a lonely fourth place. But they'll be hoping he can pursue Beaver and get back into the battle for the podium, if not the outright win. But after our second lap then, new leader. Knotavin with Dickinson being passed to the inside, but Knotavin going into turn 1 and Dickinson deciding to make haste and a bit of grass with it. Well, as they make the way up towards the horseshoe this time, fastest lap, Beaver 36.641, and that being the best part there of 8 tenths quicker than Knotavins lap by comparison. But then again, Beaver does have the double draft, plus also he's not had a lap he's had to battle, and therefore that's why he's been able to get that fastest lap on the board nice and early. We expect the lap times to tumble as the fuel comes out the cars. The clouds come over the circuit as well. That will help cool the circuit down a little bit. Of course, when you have sunlight directly onto the circuit, track temperature rises very aggressively as rubber is being laid down. When you have cloud out there, what it does, it causes the track temperature to stabilise and just hold station. First, they make the way on around through turn number 5 into 6. Well, right now, Knotavin definitely getting his head down in this one, and Dickinson, I think, is now getting some back together, but Dickinson there going a bit slowly. Is that a slowdown penalty potentially for Dickinson? You can pick up slowdowns there quite easily for the opening sector. Not quite sure what's happened, but what we can tell you is that's definitely not what we expected in terms of him backing off a little bit. We are just double checking it with race control, and no, Dickinson decided there to let Beaver go. I wonder if this is all part of a master plan here to potentially get Beaver, who seems to be quicker at this point in the race, based on what Dickinson is perhaps thinking. Perhaps he's letting Beaver do the hard work and chasing off to Knotavin, and Dickinson wants to protect the tyres. Perhaps he's learned from Chicago that sometimes to win the race at first, you've got to be willing to give up a place and essentially sacrifice some pace along the way. Well, Bob Nova will be brought back into this right now. Given the change, you've got 1 second approximately separated from car to car to car, all the way back down to 5th place. Although Gabay's almost in the picture right now, this is a very tight field still, and then you've got Pancakes and Simply Steve behind. They have dropped what is Garlic Dog a little bit. In fact, no, they have not. Garlic Dog is still there. They've dropped Paper Bag to 3.5 seconds, and right now Cat Daddy is closing quite quickly on Paper Bag, so don't rule Cat Daddy out. He may be able to get involved for a top 10 finish, if not potentially a top 5 finish by the time we get to the checkered flag. But meanwhile, back to Simply Steve and Pancakes. We look off the rear of the 481 Sim City racing car, and Pancakes' his pace. Well, again, this is not to be rude about him at all, but where has it gone compared to qualified? It's just not there right now. The Sim City racing drive, I wonder if it's a setup change of the car, and it's just made him feel a bit uncomfortable by comparison. Again, conditions can also evolve as well as we go from qualified to race, and between those races as well. Perhaps the conditions just slightly evolved. He's just not comfortable with the circuit. It only takes a small adjustment, perhaps a change of wind, alternative track temperature just change a little bit, coming up or lowering, and so the car no longer feels anywhere near as great as it did only moments ago. As they get ready for uphill bend this time, well, Simply Steve biding his time here, and Pancakes going for a much later apex, very smooth line, but Simply Steve, you can see it in the body language of the car right now and what the driver's exhibited. Our 23 driver there in the Sakura Blossom car is really feeling confident for Speed Squad that he has got the pace to make a move, and he wants to make it sooner rather than later, but he wants to time it right so he doesn't lose Gabay in 6th place, who's currently 1.1 seconds away on average, and therefore should this battle really open up, then you would see that top 6 creep off into distance. So that's why Simply Steve is really waiting for this one, rather than just trying to poke his nose in straight away, because he wants to make the move in a place whereby essentially he get the place, not lose too much time, and the race carries on. He can continue to climb his way up through the field after serving that qualifying ban. But new fastest lap race, Dickinson at 36.076. So Dickinson is doing what we thought he might be doing, which essentially he's backed off a little bit. He's going to let the lead battle fall into 2 other drivers' hands. Knotavin not the best of runs out of the horseshoe, and here comes Beaver then. as we ride aboard with your second place driver, and the prize right now find himself caught between a bit of a rock and a hard place. He'll be cognizant of the fact that Dickinson gave up the place willingly, so it won't be the Beavers perhaps they're thinking, right now, well, Dickinson's being my friend. This is a temporary truce, and one day break the truce and become a bit of a war between the three drivers again. But right now, Beaver definitely trying to find a way to consider all-out warfare versus Knotavin as he makes his way through the sequence once again. But right now, the only weaponized love he'll be demonstrated will be his love for this MX-5 and VIR as he comes in towards this braking zone. And, well, when exactly is he going to try and pull the trigger on a move? Not right now. The number 10 driver still waiting a little bit longer, but as he bobs his way between the cores, you can see he really is following the wheel tracks there of Knotavin. Although he's got the understeer to deal with that dirty air, right now he is putting that pressure on. And Knotavin, well, he normally is one of the coolest drivers under pressure, but even Knotavin feels it as the rear of that MX-5 just sliding a little bit more. I suspect he's got quite a loose rear end of that car by default to give it as much turning as possible. He's got to be careful there because the harder he pushes to try and break away or hold his position, the more he's going to heat up those tyres. And hot rear tyres on a circuit such as this, and with such a warm day today, and suddenly those grip levels are going to be diminishing. But here they come onto lap number 6. I'm almost to the halfway point of the race as we look a bit further back there to Simply Steve getting closer and closer to Gray. But back to your lead as we go. And as our camera pans to them, well, right now Knotavin defends in the middle of the road. Beaver just literally shadows him. And Dickinson's there. Meanwhile, Bob Nova versus niCKaLaToR. Bob Nova under pressure. And Simply Steve on the inside there of Gabay. So Simply Steve takes the 6th place of Gabay. He had passed Pancakes previously, but Gabay tries to come back at him. We will get a replay of how Simply Steve found his way past Pancakes shortly. And once they make the way through the corners there, well, right now it does seem as though Simply Steve hold his ground very nicely and we're able to move on. He wants to get into that battle for 5th and 4th versus niCKaLaToR Bob Nova. That's 3 seconds away, but at the pace that Simply Steve's going at, I wouldn't be surprised if he's able to get there within the next 3 to 4 laps. Now, meanwhile, we come back to your leading trio. We're just a little bit conscious of cutting away to a replay because, of course, it was pointed out to us at Chicago that we did miss out on a lap battle for what was at Knotavin and Etney Dust at the Chicago Street Circuit. They went for an entire lap side by side, and unfortunately that was lost the annals of time. That was not caught on the replay footage there. One of the risks we have, of course, we cut into a replay at any point. We can miss some moments, but right now we're not missing this, which is your top 3 literally nose to tail and enjoying an absolutely brilliant battle here. But Beaver right now he's glued to the back of Knotavin. Dickinson is there with him, and I think Dickinson at this point, as we ride on the dashboard of your 3rd player in this trio, he's probably saying to himself right now, so what's the game plan here, Beaver? What are you thinking? And well, Knotavin will be thinking the same as well. Is Beaver's game just simply to sit there behind Knotavin and put mental pressure on, or is it alternative to go for a move? As Dickinson a bit further back, in fact too far back this time, and well, I think we're going to see an answer to that question of what is Beaver's plan, because Knotavin had to go very defensive here, and Beaver cuts it back to the outside. This is all about trying to get to Knotavin head right now, making him wonder when is the move going to come, rather than is it here now, because they make the way return of 1. Beaver, they're getting close, and Knotavin going partially defensive into the middle of the road, and Beaver not responding by trying to throw a dummy or selling it to the inside. No, what Beaver's doing is just simply saying, I've got time, I can happily wait, Knotavin. Let's just keep doing this, and let's see how well you're able to cope with the mental pressure. And well, meanwhile, Bob Nova's got the same mental pressure for niCKaLaToR, but niCKaLaToR on the inside to outside here as they make the way on through left hook and in towards the snake. And right now, as niCKaLaToR looks around the outside, that's brave to be on the outside here. He's got to expect respect from Bob Nova, and Bob Nova gives it, and in the end, well, he's going to be rattled there as Bob Nova, as niCKaLaToR through the snake moves up in a 4th place. But right now, will we see Bob Nova come back here into uphill, or is it going to be a mountain to climb for him? And the answer is the latter. Bob Nova has to sit behind there. niCKaLaToR does confirm that 4th place. A lovely move, and to be fair, very respectful racing between the pair. But this brings Simply Steve now within a second. So Simply Steve has achieved his target, get onto the back of the battle for 4th, and he will now know this will probably be the furthest he can go in terms of taking 4th place, because it is 6.5 seconds to Dickinson. And well, Simply Steve will not want Gabay, nor Pancakes, nor Garlic Dog, who has carved his way up to 9th place off camera ahead of Cat Daddy and Paper Bag. And well, we'll see there Cat Daddy getting closer and closer little by little. The man who's starting from the pit lane, well, right now, understandably, for Simply Steve, he does not want to fall into the clutches of any of these drivers, as Paper Bag sits last on runners there, but still carrying on. Great to see. But back to your lead as we come. And as we do, again, Beaver still there. Dickinson still waiting as well. This really is the game of patience now. And you have niCKaLaToR battling here with Bob Noble. These two have decided it's going to be warfare on the road. As here comes Bob Noble looking around the outside. But niCKaLaToR on the inside, covering him off nicely. And, well, this is going to bring Simply Steve a further couple of attempts into the fold. As they weave their way around. And indeed, there's more to come in this battle. That's for certain. But what is going to be the next move being made? Well, Bob Noble thinks about cutting to the inside there into that car bed. And they realise there's such an aggressive line, that's not going to work, and instead just waits his turn. But right now everyone's got patience, but it will run out at some point, and Simply Steve now is right there on the back of the pair, and he's getting ready to make some moves of his own as he comes in towards the run of uphill. You can see they're Gabaying pancakes. They are now starting to close up in this group as well. They are all being held back on each other, as here comes Bob Noble looking up the inside. It's just a little bit of look at the nose there. niCKaLaToR does have to leave the door open. I think cognizant of the fact that Bob Noble could have gone for a lunge if he wanted to, and Simply Steve now, he's all over the back of his rival like a bad rash. Bob Noble, we look at his rearview mirror and realise that right now the little bit of text at the bottom of the mirror saying objects can appear close they see. Well, I don't know how much closer they can be. As Simply Steve here breaks his way in towards the roller coaster bed, mounts the curb, and right now just loses out a little bit there. But of course the concertina effect, you're always going to lose out when you're that close into a heavier braking zone. You can't afford to be too close. You have to brake earlier, because otherwise you will tap your rival on the rear, and that's the last thing you want to do. But as we look to the exterior cameras, we come back to Knotavin, and here comes Beaver. Sorry, he's been waiting for the best part of 5 laps to go for this. And here it is. Beaver looking around the outside of Knotavin. Knotavin defends, but Beaver sweeps around, takes the lead as Gabay, meanwhile, is into the pit lane. So Gabay comes in from what was at the time being part of the back end of the top 10. And, well, why is he coming? That's the question. We'll get an answer shortly. As meanwhile, more fighting to come, and niCKaLaToR still holding Bob Noble at bay, and Simply Steve still looking for a move in. But there's your confirmation that Beaver has made that move stick, and a lovely move from him, no doubt about it. But how can he hold on for the rest of the distance? That is going to be the hard challenge for him, and the hard craft that he will need to make have happen. But in terms of what has happened there to Gabay, your answer, ladies and gentlemen, is that, well, it's just a straight road to the pit lane. Now, I think he might have had qualifying fuel in the car, because he's got no penalty. He's perhaps penalised himself there for getting the setup wrong. Meanwhile, Knotavin, glued to the back there of Beaver, looked up the inside, and well, it didn't quite work out. Dickinson there with him still. And right now, Knotavin tried to do what Beaver did to him, which is get into his head and try to make a counter move. But right now, I think Beaver here might be the driver with a little bit more fortitude by comparison. That's not to besmirch Knotavin, but I think Beaver timed it right. And now Dickinson's going to be looked at by Beaver, and essentially he'll be saying for underneath his helmet, which is, come on, Dickinson, I expected, well, you have played it safe behind me, so what is your game plan? Surely you're going to attack, or you're just going to watch us the rest of the race? Dickinson, of course, will have his own game plan. I suspect his game plan will be to get involved at some point within the next 5 minutes, and the time will probably be thinking to himself, when is this going to happen? Well, as they come down the start for this straight, going on to the next lap. On to lap number 10. Well, here comes Dickinson. He makes his play. Looks around the outside there. Too wide with Knotavin, who tried to make the move at the last minute on Beaver, but Dickinson called him out on it. And Beaver now, well, holds his line there. But again, you can see Dickinson backs off the outside. Beaver, meanwhile, defends that inside line very nicely on the exit of the corner. Now in towards turn number 3 they go. And will, given the nature of turn 2, to cause the car to understeer out. Knotavin there not going for the switchback to try and get to the inside of turn number 3. And they stay as they are. niCKaLaToR, meanwhile, still with Bob Noble and Simply Steve behind him. And niCKaLaToR at this point really has to put up the defensive wall. The more he defends, the bigger the gap becomes to the top 3. It's almost 10 seconds now as Bob Noble and Simply Steve, meanwhile, just queue up behind him. And here is Beaver, meanwhile, under pressure of Knotavin this time, coming in towards uphill bend. And Knotavin gets so close as that braking zone. It is a place to overtake, as meanwhile Dickinson there takes all the road and plenty more. Almost end up in the full course, almost making his way towards Oak Tree Bend at that rate as he makes his way on through the S's sequence. Dickinson right now really attacking this lap as Knotavin takes a quick look to the inside there before roller coaster and then thinks better of it, but you can see he's getting eager. They all are getting eager right now. Beaver, to be fair, really staying cool under this pressure that's being exhibited. Well, that's the side of a man who wants to take the win here today. niCKaLaToR, meanwhile, a bit further back. Still fend off Bob Nova and Simply Steve as they clear the roller coaster. And more hog pen it will be. And then they've got 3 more laps to go. It's not over yet. We are going to get a grand total of 13 laps in this first of our 2 races today. And right now, Beaver has got the unenviable task of holding on. As here's an even bigger draft from Knotavin. It's been an attempt to draft past, but it won't work. And meanwhile, Dickinson sees the space is open. And so he says, thank you very much, Knotavin. But Knotavin says, hold up a second. Who said you could take that place off of me? And as they make the way up towards turn number 3 right now, Dickens on the inside. Will he stay there? He is going to try it, but he has to fall back in. It doesn't quite work out. Meanwhile, niCKaLaToR, Bob Nova and Simply Steve. Simply Steve trying to scoot around the outside there. Doesn't work out. Switches it back. And, well, Bob Nova right now is going increasingly defensive here rather than being allowed to attack niCKaLaToR. He's doing everything he can to try and make a move happen, but it's not working out at the moment. And Simply Steve right now is going to have to try and find a plan B out of this, because otherwise he will be stuck in 6th place. And to be fair, it'll be 3rd place in the grid for the 2nd race of the day, but something tells me he wants a lot more, as Pancakes is rapidly closing up to the back of them. And Pancakes right now, there's tire to be found here. He does seem to have found his pace from qualifying, which did seem to leave at the start of the first 10 minutes of this race. So Pancakes could have a chance to get for a top 5, but will he be able to get there in time? That we will see. But meanwhile, your leader's going through Knotavin, experimenting with different lines. He comes through the S's. He really wants that place off of Beaver. And right now, that's not desperation, but that's definitely, I think, a thought process, which is I've got to think outside the box. You normally have to make an overtake when the racing is this close and everyone knows each other so well. But I just wonder whether Knotavin is running out of options, and now he's looking at unconventional lines you wouldn't normally go for, you wouldn't normally practice making an overtake on. And, well, of course, those unconventional lines can be the source of some inspiration and some magical moves. But as they come onto the penultimate lap 12 of 13 with the time we have, of course, 20-minute race, we are time gated on the race. Well, here we go, and this time Beaver defends on the outside, and it keeps the door wide open to the target and says to him, well, if you want it, there's space for you to go get it. You just got to be ready to try and take it off of me. And it doesn't work out there. But meanwhile, off camera, we are hearing that Simply Steve has lost out to a degree versus Bob Nova. He's now 2 seconds behind. He's had a very poor run coming through a hog pen, so therefore Pancakes are over the back of Simply Steve for 6th place. And meanwhile, it's a poor run out of NASCAR for what will be there, Knotavin, and Dickinson looks up the inside, and just like that, Dickinson moves into 2nd place. Well, we didn't think it was going to come like that, but then Dickinson saw the opportunity. And as he comes out of turn 6 and now on towards the pass, up towards uphill bend. Right now, Knotavin is going to feel as though he's been done by here as they make the way in towards that braking zone. Dickinson goes defensive, and Knotavin immediately goes to the racing line, then says Dickinson, fine, be that way. I'll get the switch back off the corner, but Dickinson gets a good exit as well. But just a sudden change there, and into the lead of that battle for 2nd place goes Dickinson. But with that, ladies and gents, we take a quick look back at how exactly that move was made. Now, this was going through the sweeping bends, but what happened exactly? And Knotavin went for the move there, so he did try to lunge it on what was Beaver, tapped the rear of Beaver's car there, and lost a lot of momentum, and that is how Dickinson got the move done. He saw the opportunity after Knotavin went all in at NASCAR, and unfortunately put all his chips on the table, but they all rolled off the table as quickly as that, as we head back to your live racing. And well, it was a move attempted, no doubt about it. And with 30 seconds left on the clock or so, well, we've got 1 lap to go, ladies and gentlemen. And well, that's the only replay we can afford at this one. The race action has been absolutely nail-biting throughout. Well, Beaver looks set here for the win, but is Dickinson going to hold on to 2nd place? Is he going to make it a 3rd 2nd place in a row? Well, at this rate, he'll be getting himself the nickname Mr. 2nd Place. But to be fair, I don't think he'll complain, but it's giving him a huge haul of points in the championship, but in the 2nd half of the season. niCKaLaToR still hold on to 4th there with Bob Nova. And then you see Simply Steve after the error that he's made, that we haven't quite caught on camera, but we are hearing happen through a hog pen a couple of laps ago. He's got Pancakes right now glued to the back of him. Cat Daddy running at 8th for the man who started from the pit lane is, of course, here to take what will be pole position for the feature race. Head of his teammate, a Garlic Dog. And then we do see Paper Bag and Gabay a little bit further down the order, but still running happily as there's Gabay. But as we do leave the B for now, we come back to the front of the field. There's Beaver. And, well, 6 steps ahead of Dickinson as he exits uphill bend. And right now, it's more the battle for 2nd rather than the battle for the win, as we predict it. And niCKaLaToR, meanwhile, feeling the pressure of Bob Nova. Bob Nova looking up the inside, but on that inside line has to break earlier there. Does There's no question about it. Well, niCKaLaToR holding on for now, but this could all change. Only a few quarters to go as Beaver makes his way down with the roller coaster for the final time in this race. And right now, Dickinson and Knotavin both 3 tenths apart from him and each other, but as they come down in towards the hog pen. Well, right now for Beaver, it was a 5th place in qualifying. Not the best of qualifying performances from him, but he kept his cool, made his way through the field little by little, and now it's a drag race to line. And as the checker flag gets ready to wave, it is going to be victory for Beaver. And what a win it's going to be here for the first race of the day. But who will take second? It will be Dickinson who holds off Knotavin. And then we do have a run for 4th. But is it niCKaLaToR? Is it Bob Nova? And I think niCKaLaTOR's had the better exit out the final quarter. And it will be niCKaLaToR who takes the first spot off of the podium in 4th place ahead of Bob Nova. And then we will see Simply Steve hold on to 6th versus Pancakes. And behind the SimCity Racing Machine, it will be Cat Daddy who started for the pit lane, goes to finish 8th place, and he will be taking a pole position for your feature race, and winning the plain race cars driver will be ahead of his teammate of Garlic Dog, who sadly will not be joining him that front row given his 9th place finish. That's exactly where we'll be starting in the feature. 20 seconds wide, and give these guys a round of applause as well, ladies and gentlemen. They all deserve it. And Paperback, to be fair, not putting too many a foot wrong in this race, and just gradually learning the throws of the circuit and building that pace. He'll take home 10th place here as he makes his way to the line, and then we will see your final finish of the race just come up behind him. It will be Goodbye, who had to make a trip to the pits for what we believe was some fuel to go in the car, as he had not put the right amount of fuel in. He had the qualifying fuel in the car rather than race fuel, and Goodbye will take 11th place. But what a first race of day, no doubt about it. An absolute thriller, ladies and gentlemen, with plenty of battling up and down the field, but particularly inside the top 5. And as we now get set for our second race, we do have a 5-minute warm-up period, and that gives us the perfect amount of time to walk you through the race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. And as we can see, after an absolutely thrilling and gripping 20 minutes of racing in our sprint race, round number 5 of the Just 2 Idiots Championship Series Season 13, the MX-5 edition, brought to you today from VIR in the Lepers, Beggars and Prostitutes Grand Prix, as sponsored by none other than Biker Pilot. Your winner was Beaver. Started 5th, but made his way through to the win in the end with a decisive set of moves of both Dickinson and Knotavin. And where it was the 10th for Knotavin to try and come back at Beaver that opened up the doorway with only a couple laps to go, and Dickinson put his foot in the door and said, "Don't mind if I do," and the SimCity Racing driver making it his 3rd, 2nd place in a row. Knotavin finishing on the podium once again, but a 3rd place in this one for night racing, but 3 tenths separating the leading trio. Expect even more fireworks between them over 40 minutes that's coming out shortly. niCKaLaToR took 4th for Bong Life Motorsport, and in the end, the best part of half a second ahead of Bob Nova for Team What Team, as niCKaLaToR was able to hold off both Bob Nova and Simply Steve, but a mistake from Simply Steve with 3 laps to go meant that in the end he had to fend off Pancakes for SimCity Racing, and perhaps the biggest shock of them all, Pancakes started 3rd, finished 7th, and the question being, where did the pace go? Because it came back in the final 5 minutes of the race, but it wasn't there for the opening 12 to 13 minutes or so. Cat Daddy started from the pit lane, the playing race cars driver there, in the end finishing 8th, will take pole position for your final race of today, with Garlic Dog, his teammate, 9th there, and starting 9th for the finale, and then Paperbag and Gabay completing your 11 finishes, all on the lead lap, which is fantastic to see, and all safely on home for some very valuable points. But what a race it was, no doubt about it, ladies and gentlemen. And well, in terms of the statistics and the story of the season, well, bear in mind that is only Beaver's 2nd win of the season. But when it comes to the sprint races, that is his 2nd win of the season, but it is his 3rd win of the season because, of course, he did take the feature race win last time out. And well, Beaver definitely bringing on home a good run of results. But as we do wait patiently to make our way into what is the feature race, well, we do have a little bit of breather. The best part of 3 minutes, so this is the perfect opportunity. If you're sat there right now thinking, well, watching all that race in action for the sprint has definitely made me thirsty or hungry, well, go get yourself a top of a liquid refreshment, whether it's water, a soft drink, alcohol, your choice of beverage, or if you fancy being a little bit posh, perhaps even a cup of tea, or dare you do so, a bit of coffee. And alternatively, if you are feeling a bit peckish, well, this is the perfect time to go get yourself some potato chips, some crisps, alternatively something alternative, which would be just as delicious. But as we've been feasting on some brilliant racing, We do look to the cars of Simply Steve and Cat Daddy parked up in the pit lane right now, and they'll be looking at race number 2 and thinking, okay, what's the game plan? And well, for Simply Steve, he has made his way all the way up to 6th place, but of course, there was that small blip with an error that did cost him some time, and he'll be thinking now, starting 3rd, can he take the lead and potentially run away with it? And if so, well, that would definitely be a huge result for him. Cat Daddy, meanwhile, after starting for the pit lane, he'll be hoping in this second race that it's not going to be about starting for the pit lane, and what he can instead do is make his way forward from what would be for him that pole position and try to run away from it. Run away with it. It's not going to be an easy job, no doubt about it. Indeed, as we've seen over the course of this season, those who start on pole for the feature race, they normally do get swallowed up over the course of the race distance, but you never know, to be fair, which way the racing is going to go. And that's what keeps the intrigue flowing at the Just 2 Idiots Championship Series. And that's why we do have the inverted race grids for what is formats such as this, where we have 2 races in a given evening, because it always keeps interest in our Cup machines, which you would expect, to be fair, in a Cup series as hosted in the United States of America, in the United Kingdom, or around the globe. You do normally see in Cup series on a race day, rather than having 1 extended race, they normally do have 2 races, or even 3 races, which will be of identical lengths, or whereby the initial races will be shorter compared to the final races, which involve an inverted grid, because it adds that dynamicism of having drivers who wouldn't normally be started towards the front based on their qualifying pace. They get an opportunity to potentially take a top 5, a podium, perhaps even a win, but also a little bit more time in the race. It gives the drivers who are better with longer race distance at managing the tyres and protecting the car. It gives them an opportunity to shine. And you will see that, for example, if we want to use some equivalents in the United Kingdom, you do have the OT publishing with Toyo Tyres Coupe Cup, the Hyundai Coupe Cup, which is dedicated to the Hyundai Coupe from, I do believe, I want to say 2006 through to 2009, whereby they typically, on a given race weekend, have 2 to 3 20-minute races. It's normally 2 20-minute races, but they also do have 1 round per season, which is a 45-minute endurance race round, and well, that mixture of racing formats, that's what we have here in the Just 2 Idiots Championship Series, always keeping things fresh and keeping fresh faces towards the front. But just like that, we've been waxing lyrical about motorsport. We make our way back to the grid, ladies and gentlemen, because it's time for race number 2. It's time for our 40-minute feature. And as our drivers do make the way onto the grid, once again, this is how they'll all line up for our second and final race here of our penultimate round in the Lepers, Beggars and Prostitutes Grand Prix VIR for round number 5 of Season 13 of the Just 2 Idiots Championship Series, our MX-5 season, brought to you on iRacing. Cat Daddy takes the top 8 inverted pole position, and he will be joined on the front row of the grid by none other than Pancakes. The Sim City Racing driver will look to try and take the fight to the plain race cars driver as soon as humanly possible, and then Simply Steve for Speed Squad will be joined on the second row of the grid by Team What Team's Bob Nova. Then on row number 3, it'll be niCKaLaToR Bull Life Motorsport, who'll be hoping to keep the likes of Knotavin for night racing, Dickinson for SimCity Racing, and of course your Race 1 winner, the Protein Beaver at bay. But if he cannot do so, well, it'll be interesting to see how exactly the 3 drivers behind him come through the field. Meanwhile, Garlic Dog for playing race cars, he starts ninth where he finished in the sprint race, and he'll be joined on that 5th row by Paper Bag, who completes the top 10. And behind the American Privateer, it'll be his fellow countryman, Ogabay, and they will complete your starting lineup of 11 drivers. But just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we complete our run through the grid. And well, the formation lap is about to get underway. Everyone's absolutely set and ready to do so. And while there, we can see our front row drivers making their way. Of course, Cat Daddy will have the right to lead the field out the pit lane. And as he does so, well, there'll be single file initially, but then they will go to double file quite quickly. All behind, of course, our Porsche Carrera safety car there. Well, making the way up towards turn number 1. And as they do so, all drivers, of course, will be very eager to go racing once again. They'll be very excited to do so for the second time today. But a race now that is double the length for the first one. We are expecting a grand total of in the region of 25 to 26 laps. And therefore, tyre management is going to be an increasing factor. Also having the right amount of fuel in the car. We've had a lot of cloud come over the circuit since our first race. And with it, track temperature has fallen to around 111 degrees Fahrenheit. So we have lost around about 10 to 13 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on where you are on the circuit. It's a little bit cooler, but we are still pushing the best part of 40 degrees centigrade equivalent. We are in that uncomfortable temperature zone at the moment for what is the tyres, and therefore those who protect the tyres within the opening 10 to 20 minutes race, they may have some extra life towards the end, but do they need to use up the tyres early in order to be able to make progress? That is always a challenge, and particularly if you start further back, if you're in the situation such as Dickinson, for example, starting 7th place. Yes, you protect your tyres early on, but at what cost does it come to? Do you see the field split? And in doing so, does that mean you can no longer chase down the win by the time you finally got your way through and you've got the tyre life to go on the attack? It's really got to be a measured performance here, and I suspect for a lot of our fast drivers starting towards the back end of the top 8 inversion, they'll probably go on the attack for the first 3 laps, and then they will calm the car down to preserve some tyre life. Meanwhile, if you're Pancakes and Cat Daddy at the front row, how do you cut this race? Do you try to push on early on, or do you take it easy, accept the fact that the field behind you will catch you eventually, and instead get the field behind you to fight, and therefore what you need to do is drive very defensively and essentially cause a bit of a roadblock, a legal roadblock at that. Well, that's all part of the challenge. Remember our podium from last time out in the feature race at Chicago was Beaver, Dickinson and Simply Steve. Well, we had 2 of those names on the podium for our first race today. Will we see them all on there this time around, or will we see some different names up there? Well, for that and more, it's over to Cat Daddy, ladies and gentlemen, to take us away for 40 minutes of racing action. As he makes his way up to speed, he goes immediately, does Cat Daddy. So it's an early start there, but it's a smart start for the 69 driver. And as he roars his way onwards, well, Pancake's being caught napping at that one, and he makes his way in towards the opening corner right now. A perfect start there for Cat Daddy, and he'll be safe until that opening break is over. But look at Simply Steve, look at Bob Nova cutting to the inside as well, and they're all immediately going the attack there. And as they roll the way for the opening corner, Pancakes was slow at the start in race number due to a lack of pace in the car. Well, this time it seems like he's just been slow because he's been caught out. But as they make the way in towards NASCAR bend, Bob Lowe trying to go around the outside of Pancakes. Can he get it done? Knotavins there with them, trying to split the seas. And will he find a way to that middle space? Well, I think that'd be too risky there, even if you are brave. And meanwhile, behind you can see there, that's going to be niCKaLaToR Beaver battling the battle of the 2 Nicks, as it's known. And right now, who's going to be the king of the Nicks? That's what we'll have to wait and see. Not to be confused with the New York Knicks, of course. But as they make the way through the S's right now, where it looks like there, niCKaLaToR being shuffled down the orders. Dickinson now gets involved, and he goes around the outside. Smart drive there for Dickinson. Sees an opportunity, much like we saw for his battle for second place in race 1. But your top 2 already pulling away. Simply Steve on the back of Cat Daddy. 2 seconds clear as Pancakes runs wide. Just about keeps it in track limits there. And now Dickinson attacking here, but he's got Beaver for company. And well, here comes niCKaLaToR again. It's the battle of the 2 Nicks once more. And well, as we do see Beaver going defensive here, coming through the S's and in towards Roller Coaster. Well, it's going to be niCKaLaToR who backs out there. And Gabay and Paperbag there together. Garlic Dog a second behind, but Garlic Dog's lost out a little bit as Gabay taps through in Paperbag's car. And has to pull the car off there, has to lay it understeer out wide. As always, a bit further contact like that could have sent both drivers round, but did well there to get the car back under control. Just a little bit too much impetus behind Paperbag and almost losing it. But meanwhile, as we come back to the front of the field right now, not losing Simply Steve, it is Cat Daddy who leads after 1 lap. Then we do have behind him none other than Simply Steve. There's Pancakes, well, half seconds adrift, followed by Bob Nova. But we'll hold the phone on that one because here comes Simply Steve for a move into the opening bend. And will he get it done here? He goes for it. And Cat Daddy does not offer a resistance there. He decides it's better to play what is cooperative rather than play aggressor and let Simply Steve take lead this race and hope that 2 of them now can run away. But Pancakes 1.3 seconds behind. We'll have something to say about that, as will Bob Nova, Knotavin, Dickinson and Beaver who complete your top 7 behind him. Then you do have niCKaLaToR 8 tenths behind. It's a 1.6 second gap back to 9th place runner Paperbag with Garlic Dog in 10th, and then we do have 4 seconds back to Gabay, who's recovered after that mistake he made, tapping the rear of Paperbag's car and is now just getting himself back in the flow little by little. It's been a safe start from so many drivers here. Everyone really built themselves up nicely. But right now, Bob Nova losing a little bit of time there on Pancakes. Meanwhile, here comes Knotavin to the inside. So Knotavin going for it. Not happy with Bob Nova's progress. But right now, well, they're going to have to try and decide this on the circuit as the poor car gets sent flying. And Bob Nova then takes the grass. Can't quite keep it on the road. He doesn't want to try and swing the car back over to cause an instant. And well, Bob Nova there playing it safe. But of course, that cut of the grass is going to pick him up and slow down as niCKaLaToR's taking a race of action there. And I think Bob Nova in the end not expecting niCKaLaToR to come on too strong. And in the end, niCKaLaToR cutting his own part of the course. And it's 2 slowdowns that are different. And Bob Nova in the end takes the place back there. Well, I'm sure the 2 will have words after that one. I don't think any malice was meant there. I think it was a bit of a misunderstanding of speed between both drivers, which can happen, of course. Remember, when you pick up a slowdown penalty for cutting track limits on iRacing, you get the defined amount of time to serve that penalty. If you don't serve it in that time, you are required then to serve what will be a drive-through penalty instead. You normally get about 30 seconds. It can be longer, to be fair, depending on the circuit, but it always will be punishing. As niCKaLaToR still serving a slowdown for track limits, conversely. So he drops all the way down to 10th place. Paperbag and Garlic Dog come through. So niCKaLaToR right now really has been short-changed in this situation. And Garlic Dog looks up the inside here. Paperbag looking for the move. Can't quite find it as Paperbag holds his race line. Number 8 drive pushing on. But meanwhile, we come back to your leader, Simply Steve. And as much as he wanted to try and make the break away with Cat Daddy, suddenly it's actually the fact the whole field's caught up to the pair of them right now. And this looks to be a bit positional at the moment, but all in good time, as they say. As Dickinson running a bit wide, they're coming out of NASCAR bed. We catch the tail end of him rejoining, and that will be an instant point added to his name. But right now, all these drivers just really trying to measure this race out. Remember, 40 minutes of racing, and this is going to be a long race. So these drivers right now, it doesn't look like they treat it as a longer race. They're treating it as if it's a sprint, but it is a fully fledged feature here as they get ready for uphill bend. Well, Tyre Life is definitely going to be the king theme later on. But as we look back to Paperbag, making his way over the rise, Garlic Dog's still there with him at the moment. And, well, Paperbag definitely now starting to get into a bit of a flow here. His lap times are coming up very nicely. Again, a bit close to those further down in the top 10 sequence. Well, as we do see niCKaLaToR and Garlic Dog still with each other at the moment. Well, I think niCKaLaTOR's waiting to pounce there. But the playing race cars, that lovely gleaming machine, holding on for now. And niCKaLaTOR looks on the inside of the XL roller coaster. Well, right now, he definitely gets the feeling that he's a big fan of roller coasters, whereas Garlic Dog is not, because making a move like that before he gets the hog pen will absolutely smooth as silk that move. So niCKaLaTOR up into ninth. Meanwhile, in the battle for third place, it's SimCity Raisins, Pancakes under pressure here from Knotavin. It looks like, if anything, Knotavin actually bump drafted him along a little bit and saying to him, no, go on, I'm not going to attack you, stay with him in front. We've got a long race to go. I don't want to be making moves unless I absolutely have to. And right now, Dickinson will be looking at this, and I suspect over the radio, Pancakes will be on the radio to Dickinson's side. Knotavin pushing me along at the moment, just so you're aware. And, well, of course, bump draft is a big part of MX-5 racing, particularly when they do that annual visit to Daytona as part of the support for the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona on the IMSA Sports Car package. And you'll see plenty of real-life bump drafting there. And right now, you'll see some bump drafting here around VIR, only on the long straights, to be fair. They won't be doing it anywhere near the corners, because of the risk factor. Essentially, if you bump draft just before braking zone, you unsettle the rear of the car in front, you cause all the weight to pitch forward slightly and upward slightly, and then suddenly you can cause an incident. Should the driver go round, you'll be attributed as the one who caused the accident. But meanwhile, as we do see the bit of move coming on for Knotavin, going too wide here, coming uphill, through the SC goes, and Knotavin there not flinching, and Pancakes offline, and will Dickinson right now being caught up by his teammate there. You can see Dickinson not want to put the brakes on, but unfortunately there, Pancakes just not confident in the flow of the car. And suddenly Knotavin to third and get the two teammates to trip over to each other. Well, I don't think we'll see a speed squad incident, what we saw at Chicago, but definitely there. I think Pancakes and Dickinson both had to thread the needle on that one a little bit, and Knotavin very successfully moved into third and already putting 9/10 of a daylight's distance between himself and Pancakes. They come on to lap number 5. As they come down, well, Pancakes pulls over towards the pit wall there. Well, I think this is going to be an invitation to have Dickinson make his way past as he looks to the inside. So then that was more to cover off the risk of Beaver getting the inside space. And well, right now the two teammates, they will essentially shut the door on Beaver. But you can see there, Beaver says, you're not shutting the door on me, thank you very much. And squeezes out the inside there. In fact, Dickinson's going to go very wide and runs out to the grass this time and does not get it collected together. It goes round. It goes spinning around for Dickinson. And unfortunately, his aspirations are win. They've all fallen to the ground just like that as he now gets himself back on the road. But where does he rejoin? He rejoins just before NASCAR bend, but that's going to put him all the way down to 8th place. He's got a long recovery drive ahead of him. The good news is, of course, he's got a long race still to go. He's still got the best part of 33 minutes. But understand for Dickinson, that's not the way he wanted it to go. But it was looking to be an opportunity to move smoothly forward. Right now, it has really become a bit of a rough and rugged tumble instead. And we'll get his head down. But remember now, if he's going to go chasing after places, he's going to have to bite into tyre life. And that is going to come at a cost later on. As meanwhile, Knotavin now attacking Cat Daddy for second place here. And Cat Daddy holds his line. Knotavin looking one way, then the other. He's all over the back of him right now like a bad rash. But as they come up towards turn number 14, not going to work there by the time they get to roller coaster. And Cat Daddy at this point just simply putting his car in the right place in the road to make it wide enough. These MX-5s not normally wide, but right now Cat Daddy definitely having the widest MX-5 out there, just simply because he's finding the right position on the road, holding his race to 9 in turn. And Knotavin now got to get a little bit inventive with how he approaches the corner exit and get a good run out of the hog pen. For example, he could make a move, but 3/10 becomes 2 as they head down towards turn number 1. A bit far back at the moment. Beaver is 9/10 behind and closing. So is Pancake. So Cat Daddy maybe bringing more players into the party here. But in turn, is he going to open up a gap for Simply Steve at the front? Not his teammate. But right now, Simply Steve won't object. If suddenly Cat Daddy becomes essentially a cork in the bottle for second place, once they make the way out the horseshoe, Knotavin gets the better exit initially. But now he's going to be on the outside here as they make the way in towards NASCAR bend. So what does Knotavin do? He puts Cat Daddy on a tighter line. Does Cat Daddy avoid understeering wide here? Yes, he does just about. Knotavin goes to the switch track. He is going to gamble here into left hook. It's a brave move in here for Knotavin, but it's calculated. Cat Daddy in turn defends it now as they make the way to the snake. And, well, definitely not being bitten by it this time as Cat Daddy holds on. A brilliant defensive driving there for the 69 driver. And at the same time as well, Knotavin being very fair on the attack. But look at this. It brings Beaver in. And Beaver now trying to go around the outside here on the short stretch up towards uphill bend. Can Beaver do this? This is not going to be easy. Remember, he's trying to attack around a much wider portion of corner. And in the end, Knotavin simply says to him, well, I don't know what you're planning, but that's not going to work. And Beaver says, don't worry, I'll just test out the waters here. He's dipping his toes into the swimming pool. And as he makes his way on around right now, well, Beaver in that number 10. He is definitely looking dangerously quick. Beaver is meanwhile Cat Daddy has to defend here in towards a roller coaster. It's not going to work. Knotavin on the inside of him immediately. And well, that's a small trip to the grass there through turn number 11 for Cat Daddy. And in the end, Knotavin making sure he gets alongside. But Cat Daddy's still there. Going down in towards Hog Pen right now. Oh, they touch. They touch. They make the way through the Hog Pen. And Beaver right now makes his way back on the inside there. And he takes one. Is he going to take both of them here? He has got a bit of a side draft that he now sacrifices off. He decides, right, he's got enough speed. He's going to go all the way to the inside in towards Horseshoe Bend. And at the end of the opening 10 minutes, the excitement builds up to 11. As you can see, Pancakes there taking the pit exit of tarmac. Well, that may lead to a bit of a black flag if he's not careful. But meanwhile, free wide in towards the horseshoe they go. Beaver on the inside, Knotavin in the middle, and Cat Daddy on the outside. Cat Daddy gives it up. But right now, you've still got Beaver and Knotavin there. And Knotavin in the end will sit back in behind. This opens up a 3.5 second gap to Simply Steve. He'll be hoping he'll perhaps break away. But right now, Beaver at the head of his pack. Will he be given the opportunity here to get his head down and deliver some laps? Well, not if Knotavin says something about it. He almost does there under break it in towards left hook. And I think Knotavin right now, unlike a ball to Matador, he's got rid of the red cape in front of him and has decided rather than seeing red, he's going to see green here. And it's a green light for him to let Beaver essentially now see if he can chase down Simply Steve. 3.5 seconds, that can be very quickly caught up to based on the pace we have seen for some drives here today in clear air. And that's now the task of Beaver, to make sure that he keeps Knotavin happy with the pace he's delivering. Knotavin will most likely bump drafts him on the straight. And can they chase down the race leader and bring him back into the equation with half an hour to go? Meanwhile, we can see Pancakes and Bob know they will follow as best they possibly can at this point, with niCKaLaToR at 4.5 seconds behind, bring Dickinson to the party where he can. And then we do have Goodbye, Garlic Dog and Paybag completing the order. Although sadly for Paybag, there has been a bit of an incident, and that's put him all the way down to the back of the field. Now, what exactly happened to Paybag? Well, here's a quick replay to explain. Now, as he made his way into the braking zone here, he was in 10th at the time, chasing after Gabay into uphill bend on lap 6, went through the corner, and in the end, the rear let go, and one unfortunately went spinning around, but thankfully avoiding the barriers, so no damage to the car as such. But a lap before that, we of course had this excursion for Dickinson, and this is where all went wrong at Horseshoe Bend, trying to go round the outside of Beaver, tried to get the power down, and in the end, understeering wide, went to the grass, brought it back on, and that transitional grip from the grass to the tarmac for the front to the rear tyres, in the end, really upsetting the balance of the car and sending around and caused him to have a further trip on the grass. But whilst it all went wrong for him, meanwhile, we did have this brilliant battle, of course, for second place, and this was Knotavin and Cat Daddy, and what an exciting battle back and forth it was. And in the end, a look up the inside there from Knotavin to make the move in towards left hook, but then Gabay said, nope, you're not going to make that happen, I will take that back, as they made the way on through. And, well, in the end, it was, I do believe there, Cat Daddy, not Gabay. I don't know why I said Gabay there. Wrong driver's name on my mind. And, well, Cat Daddy defended absolutely brilliantly, as then it was going to be a move from Beaver, trying to go around the outside. Could he make it work? The answer was no. But in the end, Beaver did make some magic happen. And in terms of how he made that magic happen, it was on none other than lap number 7. And this was the absolute epic as they made the way down the start for the straight. And it was Beaver versus Knotavin. And was they made the way on down. Me on the inside there, Pancakes, of course, trying to go for the move using the pit lane exit tarpauling. And, well, 3 wide in the end, but Cat Daddy on that outside. He had to realise it was not going to be realistic, although he did rub against the rear left quarter panel of Knotavin for a brief moment. But Beaver on the inside able to seal the deal just like that. More brilliant battle in between them. More to come, ladies and gentlemen, as we head back to your live racing. As we do coming back, well, what now is happening? Well, VIR and Knotavin working together is the big theme here. And, well, now Knotavin definitely pushing along. That last lap, that was 8 tenths stripped out Simply Steve's advantage. So there is method to the madness here. And Knotavin and VIR right now, they have formed that temporary truce. And, well, I suspect that truce will be thrown out the window by the time they catch him. But how long will it take? I suspect it will take at least another 3 to 4 laps for them to really get into attacking distance. But close up like that, come the end of this lap, they will be in the slipstream zone of 2 seconds off the back of Simply Steve's car, and we have seen the toe off the back of these cars extends out to around about 2 seconds. However, it is negligible at first. When you get within 1 second, you really start to build a huge draft off the back of the car in the front, and that is where all the pace suddenly comes in this pack racing, and that's why you want to break away wherever possible. You do need to get at least a 2-second gap to feel safe. Ideally, you want it to be 3 or 4 seconds if you can, but 2 seconds to the target minimum, and well, at the very least, the bare negligible part will be about a second as they make the way on through the S's right now. VIR and Knotavin still together, but Knotavin right now definitely playing the game, which if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And the number 28 driver just opting not to fight VIR whatsoever, just simply help him along. 2.5 seconds of the gap to Simply Steve has had a better run through the middle sector. But now as they make the way out the corner, we can see this dashboard view, and what you'll see is that the game plan will be from the time to get the better run of the corner. Simply Steve has run a bit wide coming out of the hog pen, so therefore he has lost a tenth already onto the start-finish straight. And well, it'll be taxed very shortly, because here we go as VIR makes his way down. And Knotavin there will get right onto the back, and will just gives him a tiny little bump before they make their way into that braking zone. Not really close enough to help bump draft him there this time around. So that's the hard part for Knotavin. He's got to time his exits perfectly so he can really min-max what is the bump draft sequence there, whereby it's the minimal amount of time wasted for the maximum amount of speed gained on the straight. But also remember, when he does bump draft VIR, he's got to be gentle about it. These MX-5s, they can take some damage. They can take a few knocks around, as we did see, of course, on the streets of Chicago. When you are bump drafting, well, the idea is that you want to very gently bump the rear bumper of your rival in front. So if there is around a 5-mile-an-hour difference between the two cars, that starts to become a bit excessive. That's where you start to see notable damage occur to both cars. Whereas how he's doing it right now, only 1 to 2 miles an hour difference, and just gently taps him before making the way into the braking zone for uphill bend. That is how you do the bump drafting best there, because you're not upsetting the car in front, you're just transferring a small amount of speed onto them, plus also on the longest of straights, and we will see this very much so at Daytona in a week's time. You'll be able to essentially run on the rear bumper of the next car, and it really will feel as though you're driving as if it's NASCAR at that point. As they make the way down through the right end of roller coaster in towards the left that completes it. Well, Cat Daddy right now in that 4th place with Bob Nova behind and Pancakes there. And Pancakes, of course, losing out as Bob Nova has brought himself back into this. So right now we have definitely got a top 6 that is wide open in terms of who out of these 6 drivers could be on that podium if not taking the win. And now 4 seconds back, niCKaLaToR, who right now would like to catch up if he can, but he's starting to hit a little bit of a brick wall in terms of his lap time pace at the moment. And he's bringing Dickinson along with him. Now, is the key potentially needing to let Dickinson take the lead of the pair of them when Dickinson really is knocking on his back door? We'll have to see here, because the number 64 driver, based on the pace we saw in race 1 and also the early pace in this second race, we know that Dickinson is one of the quickest drivers out there. He's also one of the smartest drivers in terms of how he's crafting these races. Indeed, not the smartest at moments when he did go wide out of turn 1, but everyone makes mistakes, to be fair. And I think he would have been dumbfounded by the understeer that took him to the grass. But right now he's got to be back up to the task here, as otherwise, well, he may be looking at a very limited clutch of points after his achievements in race 1. It'll be the end of that podium streak as well. And, well, will it be a blessing or a curse to lose nameless to 2nd place? It's up to you to decide, ladies and gentlemen. But Kavay, meanwhile, 12 seconds back. Bit of a lonely race for him as well. Breaking away from Garlic Dog little by little by 3 attempts that previous lap. And then Paper Bag running at last but not least in 11th place at the moment, but still looking to bring home some valuable points. But as we come back to the front of the field, Simply Steve completes the S's sequence, and as he does so, gap now 1.5 seconds. So VIR and Knotavin are becoming a bit of an inevitability that he will have to deal with them. But, of course, he's now got to be thinking up strategies. How does he potentially get the 2 drivers who tried to work together to catch him? How does he get them to fight each other? And he gets himself an opportunity to reopen the gap. Well, right now, you can't really be thinking too much about that. He's got to just maintain his lines. That becomes an increasing fault as he heads towards lap number 12. We are now about to emerge towards the end of what had been our race 1 distance. That was 13 laps. And VIR and Knotavin again separated by 3 tenths here. And VIR right now definitely continuing to push onwards as much as possible and not feeling the need to be bump drafted at this point. And Knotavin not quite able to stay with him. As meanwhile, Dickinson going around the outside of niCKaLaToR. This is a swap for 7th place. And niCKaLaToR not defending too hard, lets the place go. And I think this will be part of a game plan here, which is to let Dickinson do the work to bring them up to the top 6. Pancake's the next target. Of course, Dickinson will want to catch his teammate of Pancakes, so that way they can move on towards the top 5. So this is a win-win situation for both drivers here in theory, if niCKaLaToR can stay with Dickinson. And Dickinson's got to be careful there, running very wide onto the exit curbing of NASCAR Bend. Well, they're allowed to go out there. That's not an instant point as far as I'm aware. But of course, the wider you run out of a corner, and particularly when you're carrying all that speed, and remember the curbs do not have as much grip as normal tarmac on them. They are slipperier by comparison. Well, you always put the risk in of the car becoming a bit looser. But sadly, we have had a tow to the pit lane for Gabay. Something's gone very wrong for him. We'll try and get a replay of what's happened there shortly. But right now, as we do take a look at the 2 pairs that are really the clinical parts of what races to come here. It's the VIR and the Knotavin pair in second that try and chase down Simply Steve. And then you've got the pair in Dickinson and niCKaLaToR who could yet work together and bring themselves into the fight for a top 5 spot, if not the podium or the win. But as we take a pause of our pairs for the moment, we take a look back in time what exactly happened to Gabay. Now this was going on to lap number 11 essentially. It was at the end of lap 10, made his way in towards Hog Pen, took a lot of curb initially at turn 16, and the rear of the car swaps loose then once, so he tried to counter-correct it and it snapped the other way on him and went spinning to the grass, and for Gabay it was all to the grass just like that. But afterwards, we did see a lap late on lap number 12. This was into Horseshoe Bend. And as he made his way on in, this is what caused him to tow to the pit lane. Made his way through the corner. And something breaking on the front of the car there. It just went straight on. Not quite sure. But unfortunately for Gabay, the day was done like that, sadly for him. And as we do come back to live racing, well, as we say, not quite sure what's happened to Gabay there. Perhaps a bit of a damage to the suspension from his first excursion, because it looks like he was making the corner, and suddenly something on the front left just decided, nope, we're not going any further. It could be steering wheel failure, to be fair. That's not uncommon in these cars when they have had a few bumps. And, well, meanwhile, I have to try and find out what happened to Gabay, as he's definitely out of this race, at least for the time being, on that tow and repair work. But we hurry back to the battle here for the lead, and well, Simply Steve now with an arm's reach of VIR and Knotavin. The gap has come down to 7.5 tenths, so job done there for VIR. Now, how long will Knotavin want to work with him? As Bob Nova, meanwhile, tries to follow Cat Daddy, but the man in 5th is slowly losing the top 4. The gap has opened up to 2 seconds. Cat Daddy's pace is turned up a notch. Bob Nova, meanwhile, is not able to match him, and Pancakes is there almost with him. Dickinson right now, he is starting to close up to both Pancakes and Bob Nova now that he's got into that 7th place. Of course, he doesn't have the drafts of the cars in front, so he will have to work his tyres a little bit harder. I think he'll be confident here, the fact he's got the pace to make this work out, and he'll hope that niCKaLaToR will just simply oblige him in the meantime, as we are definitely now into the world of the unknown. We're on to lap 14, and at this point, of course, in the sprint race, we would have seen the checker flag, but double the time duration, and well, we're going to be getting practically double the laps here, as Simply Steve finds himself under growing pressure from VIR and Knotavin. As we do take a quick sip of water there, our own proverbial hydration break in the Conte booth. Right now, VIR and Knotavin still simply staying station at the moment. And, well, again, the thought process will be, how is tyre life looking for all these drivers? The tyres definitely feeling that wear, that heat out on the circuit. And update there, we can see track temperature has risen a few degrees Fahrenheit up to 115. So it has gained by about 4 to 5 degrees compared to how this race started. Also, the clouds are still there, but the sun is occasionally being allowed to shine onto the circuit directly. And it's all going to serve to warm up that surface and make tyre life feel even more precious if you can retain it. And VIR and Knotavin will know all about that. You know how hard they had to work their tyres in the sprint race, and they're battling. And right now, well, Simply Steve will be trying to hope he can hold on for that win, or at least a podium. And Cat Daddy 2 seconds back. Meanwhile, with 1.8 second gap to Bob Nova, can he simply stay clear of Bob Nova? Can he open out that gap? And can he even be invited back into the battle for the win, should the leaders really fight each other hard? That's what he's going to be hoping for. A bit further back, Dickinson there with the number 64 being followed by the 5, niCKaLaToR. And well, they'll slowly catch up on Pancakes, but if anything, it does seem as though since Nick Dickinson has taken over that lead of that pair, it's not quite coming about. But meanwhile, how's this for a battle? Because we've got Beaver trying to go around the outside of Simply Steve, and well, Simply Steve going defensive. The first time he's had to go defensive since the starts of this race. Beaver on the outside, he may get this done, to be fair. Beaver, he's almost closed the door there through Horseshoe, and in the end, Simply Steve's got no response other than to let that go. Beaver just scoops around the outside, and I think Simply Steve, they've been a little bit more obliging than he would be if it was the final lap of the race, and I think deciding, you know what, it's better to stay with the pair rather than fight too hard early on. But definitely there, Beaver risking it all, and Simply Steve allowing it to happen right at the end, but definitely making sure that Beaver had to nail that absolutely millimetre perfect. It wasn't though Simply Steve just simply let it go. He only let it go once Beaver had completed about 80% of the move, and he decided, well, I'm not going to keep my nose in that space any longer on the inside coming out of the Horseshoe. Now Knotavin will be looking at and thinking, well, is Simply Steve going to oblige me when I go for it? And I think the answer may be, no, not quite. Oh, and there's Simply Steve. He loses the rear of the car, and coming out of uphill, Simply Steve's rear tyres just don't have the grip there. It goes sideways, but thankfully just takes the grass for a brief moment and gets himself back on the road. But look who comes up behind, Pancakes there, who has to make sure he sweeps up through. Simply Steve lets him go there and tries to get the dirt off his tyres as quickly as possible and get himself back up to pace. So Simply Steve, a critical error, and an error that could really define now where the battle for the win goes between Beaver and Knotavin, because with the best part of a 2.5 second gap to Cat Daddy, well, I suspect right now our top two are going to focus on making sure that battle for the win is between them and them alone. And well, if so, Cat Daddy right now has the task of making sure that he finishes in third here, with Bob Nova 1.7 seconds behind. And right now, the pace from Bob Nova is only really growing as a result of him being in the distant draft there of Cat Daddy. Otherwise, Cat Daddy is doing a brilliant job here of managing this race. Currently, it's a 10th to a 2/10 a lap that Bob Nova is closing, and we suspect that is purely on the straight. But meanwhile, Pancakes is starting to close up on Bob Nova quite quickly, and Simply Steve's there with him. Now, this will be a bit of an unknown quandary having Simply Steve behind him, because Simply Steve will want to make his way back up the order as quickly as he can, but even he's going to play a degree of patience. Dickinson now 2 seconds behind Simply Steve, and Pancakes, of course, losing some time, having to make his way past the recovering Simply Steve. So Dickinson, this has aided to a degree, and niCKaLaToR is slowly being dropped, although niCKaLaToR has just set a purple first sector of this race, so therefore perhaps he's now turning the whip back up once again. But Beaver going a bit defensive there under the Michelin billboard as he heads into uphill, and well, Knotavin still there right behind. But I think this is going to be, to a degree, a bit of a repeat from race number 1. Albeit they don't have the third party of Dickinson to thread the space between the two of them. So right now this will be a straight up fight between Beaver and Knotavin to the end. 15 minutes still to go. And right now Beaver just playing it cool. Knotavin doing the same. Both of these drivers mastered their craft, as they've demonstrated multiple times so far today. And well, right now this will be a 15-minute thriller all the way to in. This could come down essentially to who's the first to make an error rather than who's the quickest out of the pair. Cat Daddy 3 seconds behind. 3 attempts he lost on that previous lap to Knotavin and Beaver. But in turn, right now, still managing that gap to Bob Nova, keeping it healthy towards the best part of 2 seconds. 1.8 as they make the way down the straightaway. And well, as they go on to lap number 17, can they keep it there just for a bit longer is the question for Cat Daddy. But meanwhile, you can see there Knotavin thinking about moving to turn 1, and then probably thinking to himself, no, it's too early. Not yet, not with 14 minutes to go. Do it when you've got about 7 to 5 minutes left to go, because as soon as that battle starts, they're going to definitely be chiseling time off each other. And that's only going to bring the likes of Cat Daddy, Bob Nova and Pancakes right back into the thick of it. And, well, let's not forget Simply Steve is on the back of Pancakes right now and is riding the back of him like a horse. They make the way up towards turn number 3. As he does, will we see Simply Steve gallop forward here as we ride on board the gyro camera, looking down over the front of the number 23. Driver in the car right now, looking cool, calm and collected. Although, to be fair, I think under that visor right now, he'll be kicking himself for the mistake he's made coming out of uphill bend. And, well, that error definitely cost him. We'll get a replay of that very shortly. But right now, all he can do is sit with the dice that he's been dealt. And the game plan's got to be, at this point, simply make your way past Pancakes and leapfrog your way. Stepping stone, little by little, back up the field. He takes plenty of their uphill bend, but of course, a little bit more nervous now about that corner for a few laps, just because he does want to get caught out twice. Of course, they say, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. But in this case, it really will be the situation whereby if you fool yourself into a mistake twice, well, it's double the shame for yourself. As he comes down through roller coaster, Simply Steve right now not trying to fool anybody here by driving smart. But as he makes his way onwards, we take a look back in time to exactly what happened to Simply Steve only moments ago. So this was Simply Steve making his way into uphill bend, at the time on the back of Beaver. And did he tap the rear of Beaver there? He may have, to be fair, and that may have been the thing that sent the car round. What did it look like from Beaver's perspective as we look back off the rear of your number 10 car? Let's listen. And I think it was a tiny touch there, and in that contact, that caused some of the momentum of Simply Steve's car to essentially get caught from the front to the rear, and that's what sent the rear around, because the rear would have been very light at that point compared to the front through the compression uphill, and that's why Simply Steve had the spin. Well, a bit of a shock there, but a tiny touch, and that's the smallest of mistakes, but one of the biggest ones for him today. But with that, we go back to your live racing. As we do come back, we'll hear Simply Steve making or completing the move there on Pancakes. We catch that right at the tail end, but as we do so, will Dickinson also coming through. So Dickinson there, making it a 2 for 1, but Pancakes is not going to complain about that, because now he has his teammate to work with. The only problem is, unfortunately, he's dealt him a bit of a nasty hand, which is that now Pancakes has got niCKaLaToR on the inside of it. niCKaLaToR goes all in for the move, just like that, and will take the place as quick as that. Lovely move there being made by niCKaLaToR, and well, as they say, kick a man when he's down. In this case, niCKaLaToR definitely doing so versus Pancakes, who's just been knocked down the order by 3 places. But as the drivers weave their way through the SS sequence, we'll get a replay of that sequence very shortly, or as best as we can. As meanwhile, Beaver and Knotavin, and they come towards the end of what is the third quarter of this race. And we're 11 minutes to go. They'll go on to lap 19 shortly. 4.5 seconds the gap to Cat Daddy. So they're still managing that gap quite comfortably. They are not fight each other right now. They're instead just letting the gap grow. And again, we suspect when there's about 75 minutes left, that's when you'll see the proverbial boxing gloves go on between Beaver and Knotavin, and they will really start to fight this out with about 3 to 4 laps to spare. As Cat Daddy, 4.5 seconds behind, watching that distance. Bob Nova is steadily closing little by little. And well, he's got that gap down now to 1.3 seconds. And Bob Nova, meanwhile, is seeing Simply Steve become a growing presence in his rear view mirror. So Simply Steve's not out this yet for the podium, but he may be out the hunt for the win, as Dickinson also following. And Dickinson will be very grateful that Simply Steve had to pass Pancakes, and Pancakes doing what was needed for the SimCity Racing drivers, bringing their faster driver right back into the thick of the fight for the top 5. And now Dickinson will get the move on. But of course, the big question mark we have over Dickinson's number 64 car is how much tyre life has he got left, given the fact, of course, he's had to overdrive the car to make his way back up through the field after his excursion at turn number 1. And well, that tyre life will be at a premium. Simply Steve, I suspect, has also had to really wind into those tyres, and especially after that spin, which will not have helped the rear left tyre in particular, will have overheated that tyre, and he's going to need to cool the tyres down, which is possible in these MX-5s. It does take a couple of laps to get the tyre cooled down back to its normal operating window, but again, we've got a very hot circuit here today, so the normal operating window will feel like a bit of a daydream to be able to stay within. You'll normally be towards the top end of it, if not pushing towards the overheating zone. It's about dancing in out of that temperature zone. That is the important part of getting the maximum possible lap time. We're coming down through the hog pen. Very different lines there from Simply Steve and Dickinson. Dickinson much more aggressive into the corner, only really braking on the transition from 16 to 17. Simply Steve braking up through turn 16 of hog pen, and well, that's why you're seeing Dickinson close up so quickly, plus the draft. And well, here we go then for them on to lap number 20. And looking around the outside, it's going to be Dickinson, as the Target has taken the lead off of Beaver, and we'll come back to that shortly. But right now, Dickinson moves ahead, and Simply Steve tucks in behind him. But the fight is on then, with 9 minutes to go. They've decided it's time to fight. Knotavin takes the lead through turn 1 and defends here in NASCAR bend. Beaver looking for the switch back there, but decides against it, going into left hook. As much as the opportunity was there, I think Beaver right now thinking to himself, no, wait a little bit longer. We've still got time in this race. There's no point right now. Otherwise, we'll just cost each other time, and that may be what Knotavin done there. Perhaps he's decided, well, there's an opportunity to go for lead, so I'm going to go for it, and I want to see whether Beaver wants to fight for it or not, because if he chooses not to, well, Knotavin takes track position. But if he chooses to fight, it brings both of them back towards Cat Daddy, and it becomes all about who's the better at landing the overtaking blow on the other. So therefore, there's a lot of thought process going on in the battle right now, because yes, they are 5.5 seconds clear of the rest of the field, but 5.5 seconds quickly becomes 0.5 seconds when you start fighting so hard here at VIR's North Course. And that's what Knotavin is relying on. The Beaver is going to be the smarter driver here and not want to fight, but of course, the more passive he is now, the less time he gives himself right at the end. And we'll take a look back at how that move was made. We've got a few moves to take a look back, including how we did see Dickinson carve his way up the field. And this was Simply Steve on the inside of Pancakes. They're going for the move into left hook, coming out of NASCAR. And in the end, Pancakes having a huge fishtail there. And, well, the car swimming one way, then the other. And, well, Pancakes getting it back together. Well caught by him. If he's not considered playing baseball as a fielder, he'd definitely consider doing so. If you can catch a car like that, you can definitely catch a ball. But unfortunately for him, he could not catch up to what was the position being taken from him by niCKaLaToR in the end. niCKaLaToR making that move stick. But then we did have the change for the lead. That was lap 18, and this was at the start of lap 20, and this was Beaver and Knotavin. Knotavin went to the inside, Beaver pulled to the racing line there, and simply said to Knotavin, well, the space is there, go take it if you please. So then in the end, they decided to swap the places, and nothing more of it as we head back to your live racing. And as we do come back, well, still 7 minutes to go. Still plenty of action waiting to explode onto our screens here. And well, I don't think this is quite going to be as explosive as a Michael Bay movie, to be fair. But at the same time as well, it's definitely going to be an exciting one as they make the way towards the closing point. And this really now is in the realm of who's got the tyres left to attack, who's got the tyres left to defend, and who, meanwhile, is going to be a sitting duck all the way through, or just not have what is the bite to back up the bark. Well, as Cat Daddy slips down the order there, that is just because of discontinuity. He's still running third, and he has got a bit of a comfort gap to the rest of the drivers behind. Keeping in mind, of course, the fact we did see plenty of fighting, which essentially relegated Bob Nova back down to 7th, as much as it pushed Simply Steve, niCKaLaToR and Pancakes 2 seconds away from him. But Simply Steve right now definitely still trying to make down the deficit for third. And well, 2.1 seconds. 6 minutes to go. You do the maths as we go on to lap 22. We've got this lap plus most likely another 4 more. It's going to be close as to whether we do get a 27th lap or not. But if we do so, well, it's going to be literally by 5 to 10 seconds we get it. And it will come down to how much fighting goes on. And bear in mind, in iRacing, the calculation for the number of laps remaining is done based on the rolling lap average of the leader over the previous 5 laps, we understand it, or a very similar formula. So therefore, right now, Knotavin and Beaver, if they don't fight, we will get a 27th lap. If they do start to fight quite early, we are at risk of only getting 26 laps. The race will be called effectively slightly earlier than the 40 minutes, but it will because the average lap time has said the race would end on 26 rather than 27 laps as they make the way in towards uphill bend. So that is the thought process here. Who goes for what? As meanwhile, we've had a tow to the pits for Dickinson off camera. I'm just hearing in my ear. So Dickinson's escapades have come to an abrupt halt. And, well, can we quickly halt all of our racing here to take a look? I think we can. We look away from our live pictures. And here's a quick explanation as Cat Daddy makes a bit of a mountain out of a hill there, running wide through turn number 9. And this was for Dickinson only moments ago, running in 8th place. And, well, Dickinson, of course, things got a bit wrong for him. And in the end, parking up there. So something has happened to Dickinson that we haven't seen on camera, in fact. And in the end, it has come to a halt. So I suspect for Dickinson, damage to the car. But with that, we go back to your live racing. As we do come back, way sharp fall of grace there for Dickinson. But meanwhile, we're back to the front of the race. 4.5 minutes to go. We go on to lap 23. And Beaver scoops around the outside there in Knotavin. And, well, now Knotavin tries to come back here, but Beaver goes defensive. So the gloves are finally off. They have a 10-second gap to Cat Daddy in 3rd place. Cat Daddy right now, 2 seconds a lap he's been losing to them. But I think it has been that mistake that's cost him. And, well, here is Cat Daddy being sworn there. Simply Steve goes absolutely clumsily up the inside and says, well, I'm going to go hard on the race, Cat Daddy. You've got to be ready for it. And Simply Steve makes it work. They saw the space, and Cat Daddy didn't call it out in time. And niCKaLaToR squeezed on through as well. So Cat Daddy, just like that, after a small error, coming through, was uphill in towards turns 8 and 9 on the previous lap. It's brought Simply Steve and niCKaLaToR close enough, and Simply Steve dived into the space, got his elbows out there, and was taking that 3rd place for himself. But niCKaLaTOR still with him. And Cat Daddy's there. And, well, we'll try and get a replay of that very shortly. Of course, conscious of the fact that if we cut a replay in, then suddenly something else could happen. And, well, we have had a few things happen. It's all gone wrong for Dickinson, sadly. Also, Bob Nova falling down the order a bit early on. He's still running in 7th place. However, I'm pleased to announce he is still out there. And, well, Pancake's running 6th just beforehand right now, trying to hope he can get onto the back of the top 5. But as he tries to make the way through the middle sector, here's your leaders right now. Those brake lights absolutely flashing. That's where the brakes are going on, then they're going off. That's all the trail braking that's going in right now for Beaver and Knotavin. And both drivers here absolutely pushing this as hard as possible. They are going to the limit right now. And, well, 3 minutes to go or so. In fact, 2 minutes 50. It'll be about 2 minutes 40 by the time they get to the timeline. So we will be going on to a 24th lap. In fact, we may only be getting 25 laps here. And I think I've got my mental maths completely wrong if so. But here they go down that line. In fact, we are only going to get 25 laps, ladies and gentlemen, as we just had it confirmed by race control. But Beaver right now having Knotavin try and look around the outside this time. Here they go for the right-hander. And Knotavin switches back to the inside at the end of the horseshoe. But unfortunately, he's not lucky at the horseshoe this time. Instead, he stays behind. Simply Steve defending hard versus niCKaLaToR. And the Speed Squad driver here getting his car as wide as possible coming through the hairpin. And we're working it out a treat as meanwhile Cat Daddy slowly being dropped there. Now being dropped a second behind. But here comes niCKaLaToR up the inside into NASCAR Ben. He's showing no fear here to try and put his car in a bit of a difficult position. And it forces Simply Steve to make an error. Simply Steve gets caught out, goes wide. But niCKaLaToR's not close enough there. Can't seize the gap that's been created. He has to wait a little bit longer. Back to the front we go, and here they go in towards uphill, and Knotavin on the inside versus Beaver. He's going to try and go for the move here. We haven't normally seen a driver be able to successfully take that inside line. Not about a huge lunge, and Beaver there calls out the attack of Knotavin, which is about 75% committed there, but Knotavin just didn't have the final 25% he needed, and I think that might have just been conscious of brake temperatures and tyre life. But looking at the inside here, it goes it all into roller coaster this time, but there is going to be Beaver on the outside. Brilliant two wide race as they come down the hill. But Beaver on the inside for the second part of roller coaster. It will stand in the hands of Beaver, but coming down in towards the hog pen. Well, remember, 1 minute 20 left on the clock. We've definitely only got a lap left. We will get 25 laps at the end, and well, one more to go. Knotavin here, we stay on board as he makes his way and down the start-finish straight, and what was 2 tenths becomes 1. Then it becomes side by side. It's going to be a drag race here in towards this braking zone. The number 10 versus the number 28, but who will come out on top? Beaver wanting to make it back-to-back wins here today. Knotavin wanted to return to the top step by comparison, and in towards horseshoe. And Beaver right now holding his line very nicely on the inside. And in the end, Knotavin trying to swap it around, but it doesn't quite work out. Beaver's seen it all before. He's seen the switchback. He knows what Knotavin can try to do there. It doesn't work out. Instead, coming through NASCAR Ben now. Knotavin even closer this time, looking to the inside, the left hook. But in the end, it's going to miss. It's not going to work out there. And Beaver gets a jab back of his own and simply says, no, I'm going to hold my ground as he comes out of the snake now. And as he roars his way through, slivering his way through the corners. Knotavin right now a very slippery customer to try and shake off. And we're getting ready for uphill Ben. Beaver this time defending so tight to the inside. And says Knotavin, if you want it, you're going to have to go very tight. And in the end, Knotavin doesn't want to go that tight. He doesn't want to risk it right now. Second place still very valuable to the championship leader. Albeit Beaver right now with these 2 wins would definitely be gaining some ground in the championship going into our season finale. And the clock strikes 0 just like that. The final lap definitely now is locked in. We've only got a third of a lap remaining as they make the way down in towards the roller coaster this time. Less than a mile to go now as they roll the way between the corners. But Beaver has withstood the test, and Knotavin has put him every lap and at every corner. Now coming in towards hog pen. Has Knotavin got a counter-attack here? Has he got a means of gaining some more straight line speed out of the final corners? I don't think so, ladies and gentlemen, as the gap is 3 tenths here. It's a long run to line. And for Beaver right now, all he's got to do is keep his head down. He'll be willing the car on. And he took the win in the sprint. And for Beaver, it is going to be back-to-back wins here at VIR. Only by a 10th, but a 10th or a 1,000th. It doesn't matter. A win's a win. And Knotavin takes second place as he moves his championship lead forward into Daytona. Meanwhile, Simply Steve on a recovery drive takes third place just ahead of niCKaLaToR by 3 tenths. And Cat Daddy will complete your top 5 with a misfortunate mistake. Caused him to slip off of the podium. Pancakes takes 6th. And then 7.5 seconds behind it will be Bob Nova with a consolatory 7th place today. And then we've got a bit of time to go before we see our next driver coming through. Next up will be Garlic Dog, who is making his way on through right now in 8th place. And Garlic Dog here taking it nice and smoothly down through the last couple of corners. It's going to be another big haul of points here for the Playing Race Cars team. And it'll definitely keep their hopes of being inside the top 3 in the Team Championship alive going into the season finale. But here comes Garlic Dog on through then to that timing line. It will be an 8th place for the 199. And we'll give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. He's had a bit of a lonely race, but to be fair, he's been smooth out there. And then we will have a last finisher of Paper Bag. He is currently the best part of 40 seconds behind. He's had a mistake early on that's cost him some time. time, but to be fair, he's not going to give up. He will see that finish, and it will be on the lead lap as well. We have sadly lost in this race Dickinson and Gabay. Gabay of an early retirement due to damage to the car, and we believe damage to the car for Dickinson as well, forcing him to retire. So 2 drivers lost out of our 11 starters, but 9 will finish it, and the last one will be a paper bag in this one, much like in race number 1. But to be fair, all part of having fun is turning up and getting to that finish line. That's exactly what Paperbag will do for 9th place and some very valuable points in his championship campaign as he makes his way down the start-finish straight, and he does see the finish there in 9th in the number 8 car. But what a race, ladies and gentlemen. And as our top 2 of Beaver and Knotavin make the one down, what a huge win for Beaver there. Back-to-back wins, and with it, his 4th win of the season. For Knotavin, meanwhile, well, as podium stand, it does mean now he is finished on the podium in most races, and I do believe taking his 7th podium finish, and Knotavin will be pleased as punch with that. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, as our drivers celebrate and definitely congratulate each other, we take a look to the scenic view, and with it, the race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. As we can see there, after an absolute epic for 40 minutes of racing, as Beaver and Knotavin there decide to rub bumpers together and indeed congratulated each other and having a bit of fun on the finish line. Well, Beaver in the end getting the upper hand, the privateer, by 1.2 tenths over the night racing driver in the end, and Knotavin having to settle for 2nd. But understandably, a 3rd and a 2nd today will help him keep a very healthy championship lead going towards Daytona, and well, he will be the favourite to defend his championship, I should say. Meanwhile, Simply Steve takes 3rd for Speed Squad, and his race in the end, unfortunately, usurped or scuppered by what was an error which made sure that he did not have a chance to take the win, but he did recover his way through to 3rd place in the end. Bong Life Motorsports' niCKaLaToR missing out by 3 tenths to the finish line, if that, for a podium, but a 4th place finish for him, and he'll be happy with the points, but not happy to be absent from the podium spots. Cat Daddy as well, a small mistake coming out uphill in towards turns 8 and 9 midway through the late stage of the race. It definitely put him on a collision course with a battle with Simply Steve and niCKaLaToR, and in the end being elbowed out by both of them and falling into 5th place for playing race cars. It was a further 1.1 seconds to pancakes for SimCity Racing in 6th, and Bob Nova Team Watt Team definitely will be feeling as though today the pace just slipped away from him in race number 2, as well as a mistake or 2 thrown into the mix, and he took 7th instead. Garlic Dog 8th there for playing race cars, picking up some solid points, a further 34 seconds behind, and he in turn was the best part of 43 seconds ahead of Paperbag, who was your last finisher on the lead lap. Classified as finisher, but retiring with 4 laps to go, it was SimCity's Racing's Dickinson, who takes 10th place, and so it's a non-finish for Gabay, with that early retirement there, spoiling his chances of some more points. But what a pair of races, ladies and gentlemen, we've had here at the Virginia International Raceway's North Course. Indeed, our MX-5s really showing you why there's some of the very best cup racing machines out there in the world. And, well, the Just 2 Idiots Championship Series giving you a brilliant demonstration of what it's all about there, and where it teases up very nicely to go in towards our season finale. And, well, we've got the proof here today that Knotavin can be beaten straight up in a battle between himself and Beaver. Beaver taking both of those wins, but understandably, Knotavin will be the man to beat going to Daytona. So with that, it is time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Just 2 Idiots Championship Series in terms of what we're all about and how you can get on the grid for a future season of racing, or even join us for the season finale. We allow late entries, of course, but we mix things up. We're not just about MX-5s. Last season we had the LMP2 machines. We previously also had GTEs, GT3s, GT4s, you name it, we've raced it, and variety is the spice of life in the J2ICS. Well, for all that and more in terms of knowing about us and how to get on the grid with us, do head to our official website at www.j2ics.com. That website visible on screen now. A very easy to navigate website. Indeed, all the information on there. You could not find a more complete compendium for all things Just 2 Idiots Championship Series. And, well, if you do want to not just find out about how you can get on the grid, but also find out about previous seasons, about the rules and regulations, they're all there on very straightforward links, plus also all of our previous broadcasts from our previous seasons of racing. But if you don't want to go to our website, perhaps you're less about the reading and more about the community and socialising, well, of course, we do recommend you join our official Discord. Invite link available on screen there. Indeed, you won't find a more friendly community to get yourself onto the grid and up to speed as quickly as possible. Indeed, just join the Discord today and let us know you want to get on the grid, or if you just want to be a little bit of a silent lurker in the meantime, we're more than happy to have you. And anybody from a rookie through to an esports professional is welcome on the grid of the Just 2 Idiots Championship Series. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, our attentions turn to our season finale, because that was round number 5, And next up, the crown jewel of our season, around 6 of 6. And, well, it will be the Daytona International Speedway, where we complete our American triple header, but we also crown our drivers and teams champions in the US state of Florida. The racing will be on Wednesday, the 22nd of July, 2026, but we will be bringing it to you as if it were live on Thursday, the 23rd of July. And as we make our way to Daytona, well, in the Drivers' Championship, he's going to have the lead of a best part of 30 points is Knotavin. And right now, it's looking as though it's a bigger question of who will be the runner-up rather than who will be the driver to challenge him. But of course, one bad set of results and it could completely turn things upside down for our championship leader, and that is always a fault there, and he's got to keep his ears and head to the ground. Meanwhile, in the team's championship, well, the story now is that Speed Squad hold on by a slender advantage of just over 10 points to SimCity Racing, who have moved up into second provisionally, and behind them, Bong Life Motorsport and Playing Race Cars are there, with niCKaLaToR still having an outside chance of taking away the crown. It's a 5-way fight for the team's championship, and it seems though it could be a 4-way fight for the drivers' championship, but more so perhaps a 3-way fight for second. But how exactly will it all go down? Will there be drama at Daytona? Well, the only way to find out is to tune in next week to catch all the story as it unfolds. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we have been the Just 2 Idiots Championship Series, and I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. You've been tuning to a Paul Walsh production, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.